Hi, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm trying to connect my Bluetooth. I'll be right there. For now, I'll just sing to you guys or something. Just kidding. Come on. I hate Bluetooth. Anybody else relate? It never works when I need it to. It's like ancient technology or some shit. Alright, let's see. Okay, well, here's me for now. You guys can watch me try to figure this out.
Yes. In his will. It's actually badass.
I don't know why they're not showing up. Oh. Hold on, I got him. Hey, I got it. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. How is everyone? Let me do a test here. Okay, cool, it's working. And you guys can hear that too, right?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I think it's really loud.
Thank you for tuning in to tonight's debate.
Okay, that should be better. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry. I'm still working this all out and everything. So if you hear talking in the background, that's my boyfriend playing games. So sorry about that, but hopefully it's not too bad. He is off today. So anyways, so today I'm going to be reviewing the recent debate I did with Rachel Wilson, who is Andrew Wilson's wife from the Crucible. And sorry, I'm putting on socks. They have little smiley faces on them.
You better bring Michael out here.
So I'm gonna be rewatching that. It was my first ever like one-on-one debate. So, you know, don't expect fireworks or anything special. There's definitely a lot of improvements. Kind of just, so it started with, I saw a short on YouTube of Rachel's talking about this, her book basically, Occult Feminism. Basically, she believes that there's ties, these deep ties between the growth of feminism and the feminism movement and the occult, and basically these dark entities or enterprises, these dark elites that are pushing feminism into society in order to kill the church and push the church out. And it's this spiritual war, this religious war between basically like Satanists and Christians, and the goal was to push feminism to ruin society and destroy the church, basically. So while I 100% agree that the occult immensely helped feminism grow, and it did, And there's a bunch of reasons for that.
I'm in deathmatch right now.
One being is that in the 18, well, you know what?
Fuck yeah.
We'll go through the video and I'll explain all of that as it comes up. That'll probably be easier. But essentially,
Well, I'm getting hot.
women didn't have a lot of play.
Nah, I've been sucking ass.
Women didn't have a place
Sorry, I
in.
really like psychoanalyzed that last round of that Dust 2 game and I was pissed at myself.
Let me check how loud that is.
Yeah.
I need a new mic really bad. It like picks up everything. Okay, so I don't think it sounds too bad, but my gain was very high, so I'm actually kind of glad I checked. Anyways, so yeah, essentially women didn't have much of a role in the church ever, especially like leadership roles. But in occult type religions, they did. And in the 1850s, the spiritualist movement began, and there were a bunch of seances and mediums sprouting up everywhere, all over the place. But Rachel tries to pose this in a way that's very evil and astroturfed is what she calls it. So it's forced, it's evil and ill-intentioned, when really it's not. So seances and mediums, like, it does sound pretty wild, but if you think about the context of the time, electricity was recently discovered. The telegram was just invented, literally like a decade prior or something, like 10 years before this. So there's these, communications and stuff that are new to people, that are totally new to people. And
Yeah, so like that's what I'm saying. Like that's what refract probably does.
Sorry. What was
I'm
it?
just saying that's probably what it is. You're saying how do they break down the division?
Okay, sorry. So yeah, the telegram was invented. So there's these new ways of communication that are, very new and experimental, I guess. I don't know. And electricity and stuff, all this stuff is very new, recently discovered and invented. So when you think about, like, contact or talking to the beyond, sort of, it doesn't really seem that unfathomable or that unreasonable for the context of that time period. It wasn't seen as this evil thing, trying to, I just think lots of people, when they think of the occult, they think of very dark, satanic, evil types of, that stuff, like that, in that kind of category. And it really wasn't like that. So I think I commented on Rachel's YouTube short that she posted about her book, Occult Feminism. And I said, I would like to debate you on this. Because I do know the context behind why the occult and the feminism movement did grow together, and I believe you are strongly mischaracterizing it, and misportraying how it actually happened and why the two movements did grow together. So Jerry Johnson, good job on the debate, though I fundamentally disagree. I think you did a stellar job, granted the circumstances. Keep doing your thing. Thank you, Jerry. No worries for the disagreement. That's awesome. Thank you for your support, even though you do disagree. And yeah, thanks for the comment. I appreciate it. So I guess we'll just start right into this and start the video. I'm gonna cringe a little bit because again, this was my first like especially one-on-one debate, and even on like some of the larger panels, I still get like a little stage fright and nervous. So when I was reading my opening statements, I was kind of like shaky, and I don't know, it's just embarrassing. So if I'm cringing a little bit, that's why I'm just like hating listening to myself reading my opening statement. It's kind of embarrassing, but we're gonna do it anyway. So here we go.
Occult Feminism. Starting with you, Ghosty, why don't you take a moment, shout out your channel, tell everybody where they can find you, and briefly tell us a little bit about yourself. You're muted. You got to unmute yourself.
Good start. Good start. Okay. My name is Ghosty. The G in Ghosty is double two I's, so it's 6HOSTII. A little bit newer to this YouTube world and stuff. 28 years old, East Coast. Yeah. So I sped up the video to like 1.2
just riveting. Moving
speed.
over to Rachel, same thing. Shout out your channel to everybody where they can find you, and tell us briefly a little bit about yourself.
I am Rachel Wilson. I'm an author, researcher, anti-feminist, patriarchist extraordinaire, shill for the patriarchy. I have a YouTube channel. It's just my name, Rachel Wilson. You can find my book on Amazon. It's called Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation. You can find a whole bunch more of my writing on rwilson.substack.com. And I'm a homeschooling mom and e-bimbo.
Okay. Well, thank you for that as well. So as we launch into the debate, as agreed, backstage, Ghosty, I think you also go by Jane, correct?
Oh yeah, you can call me Jane.
Yeah. So I think that Jane, you're up first. You're going to have 7 minutes on the clock. Go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. So tonight we are talking about supposed occult feminism, a term coined by Rachel as far as I know, and used to title her own book, insinuating deep historical ties between the occult and the birth of feminism since first wave through today. Rachel is correct that along with feminism, and during the periods of its waves, and most notably the first waves, came an uptick in esoteric interest, like most if not all other periods of radical change and liberation. To oversimplify, interest in the occult grew during these times. In the mid-1800s, during the Seneca Falls Convention, the first women's rights convention, America was experiencing an occult wave, we could say. The fact that women's suffrage and esoteric interest coincide at the same time together is not only completely logical, given the context of the time period and the recent history and current events, but could even be considered predictable. Maybe hindsight is 2020, but my argument is this is a completely natural and logical occurrence. Whereas Rachel here has argued feminism was, or is an astroturf movement, some type of completely unnatural movement forced into society by some evil globalist secret society type of enterprise. This is simply untrue, and ironically, I would argue that Rachel's own ideals and push for change stem from a globalist secret society type of movement with perhaps even ill intent. If it were up to Rachel, we would regress into a primal animalistic type society where physical force is used to rule and dictate rather than intellect, debate, and reasoning. The laws for the entire world would be based on a half anonymously written ancient text about the conversation a schizophrenic man had with a burning bush that he probably lit himself. Now, this probably is coming off very condescending and ignorant, which I've done purposefully. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I have no ill opinions of devout Christians or any other religious people. Many of my family are strictly and even radically religious. I am personally not a follower of these more mainstream religions, but I am, according to the definition, religious, and at the very minimum, spiritual. However, I do not believe I know any more or less regarding the beyond and spiritual unknown than any one of any other religion, and I do not force my beliefs and current understandings onto others. And this seems to be the primary difference between Rachel and I. I leave room for error and change. Rachel assumingly believes life is set by the divine creation of God or Jesus Christ, and the best way to live is by following his rules and law. I believe morals are innate and come naturally from a conscious human experience, which includes things like empathy, fear, and love. So yes, while I completely disagree with Christianity's beliefs, I also don't believe... I'm going to pause there for a second. So because I was getting so nervous and everything, I ended up skipping part of my opening statement I wrote, and I feel like it kind of just, like, when I went to morals, and it seemed like very out of place and random. So what I originally wrote was, I leave room for error and change. Rachel assumingly, I can't see it all. Give me 1 second so I can read this all in one. Okay. Rachel assumingly, where'd it go? Rachel assumingly believes life is set by the divine creation of God or Jesus Christ, and the best way to live is by following his rules and law. I, on the other hand, while maintaining a set of moral principles, those which do not drastically differ from Christianity's, by the way, still believe in nuance between right and wrong, especially in an indicative right or wrong way of living. I believe morals are innate and come naturally from a conscious human experience, which includes things like empathy, fear, and love. So yes, while I completely disagree with Christianity's beliefs, I also don't believe Christians are devil worshippers. I do think I include this from there. But I was throwing that in there because I was trying to say, the whole point of that was, I don't believe religion is necessary in order for humanity to have morals. So that's why I was throwing that in there. But yeah, I'm going to continue now. Oh yeah, I also left out kind of I'm going to explain this too. I'll pause here. The reason I brought up the burning bush thing and the joke about it was a schizophrenic man talking to a bush that he probably set on fire himself, and he thought he was talking to God. I was going to make another joke too, and I ended up not to, because I'm like, this is my first time talking to these people, and it's going to come off really rude if I'm like making rude jokes about the religion. But there was a purpose to it. I wasn't trying to just be like a bitch. I was saying that because the things that Rachel will say about beliefs and religions, I don't know, never mind. I don't really prescribe to a specific religion, but when people ask, I feel like my beliefs most align with Wiccan beliefs, and that's because it's very individualized. There's no set, like, you have to believe in this, you have to worship this person, you have to worship this way. It's very open and individualized. So that's why because I do believe in almost all of their core foundational and fundamental belief systems and stuff. So right, so I was saying that because the way that Rachel will talk about belief systems that are closer related to mine is in a very condescending way, where it sounds like she's kind of making fun of and talking down on. So that's why I was throwing in that joke about the schizophrenic man who lit the bush on fire himself, because I was relating the way that she talks about like my beliefs to a statement, like an ignorant statement like that. So that's why I said, now this is probably coming off as very condescending and ignorant, which I've done so purposefully. So yeah, that was the point of that. But I just wanted to explain that Christians are devil worshippers. But many religious people, including Rachel, will say such things about religions that aren't their own, and specifically occult associated religions. Similar to how Rachel wants to take back the word patriarchy and reassociate it with a new light and a positive spin, I want to do the same for religions or beliefs and spiritual paths like mine. The fundamentals of paganism, Wicca, spiritualism, and so many more are peaceful, positive, and share many of the same moral principles of Christianity, such as don't lie, cheat, or hurt people. They also do not believe in harming or hatred
It's so
of men.
embarrassing. I was so nervous.
They only view male and female qualities as equally divine and important. My goal of this debate is to successfully debunk Rachel's theory that occult feminism is what occult feminism actually is, and explore the factors and events leading to this cohabitation of feminism and the occult. Sorry, I hate reading.
Okay, no problem. Before we launch in to Rachel's opening, just two quick
That was so embarrassing. Okay. But yeah, I think my opening statement was like pretty good. Yes. Okay. Hi, Harry. If you're just tuning in, yeah. So I'm cringing because I think my opening statement was actually pretty well written, but I hate reading, and like it was my first one-on-one debate. It was my first like stream where a good amount of people will be watching, and I just get like stage fright and nervous in general. So as I was reading, especially closer towards the end, my voice was getting very shaky and I was like so nervous. So I'm just cringing listening to myself back a little bit. But other than the way I read it, I do think my opening statement was well written. But yeah, now we're gonna get into Rachel's, and I'm gonna play it at like 1.2. I've been playing it at like 1.2 times speed. Okay. Thanks for being here.
One, if you leave a message that you're bored, mods will remove you from the chat so you can go be bored somewhere else, because I'm fucking bored of you, right? I'm bored of your stupid ass chats about how bored you are. You get the fuck out of my chat. How's that? How's that? Then I'm not bored anymore watching you get fucking stupid. And the clicked on that says, but I think many of you might be. With that, I'll turn it over to Rachel. Go ahead. 7 minutes on the clock.
All right. So in Jane's opening, she kind of gave you her worldview and where she's coming from on this topic. And I will say that I do have a small following of witches and occultists of different varieties who actually love my work because they think that I am giving witchcraft and the occult its due and proper in propagating feminism and turning it into kind of the mainstream social order that it's been for at least the last 50 years now, I would say. So there is that. You could theoretically from that position look at what I do and say, yeah, you're right. But witchcraft and the occult was really instrumental in bringing egalitarianism and women's rights into the mainstream. And if you think that that's a good thing, then sure, you could say yay to the occult and to paganism and to various forms of witchcraft, who all, because they have a goddess worship element. This is a lot of the reason when she said she felt it was kind of inevitable. I would agree. When she said it's kind of a natural order of things, I actually say that in a academic article.
That's the thing, though. So, I'll let her continue, obviously, but that isn't the reason why feminism and the occult happened to grow together as movements in the mid and late 1800s. It wasn't because the occult type religions have goddesses, which they also have gods too. In Wicca, specifically, there is a god and a goddess that together create, like, I guess, like the balance of nature and the universe, pretty much. And in my personal belief, it's not an actual entity. I don't actually worship any gods. I believe it's just kind of something we can't comprehend that's bigger than us, and I don't know. There's something to explore there, but yeah, it's not because of we worship goddesses and fuck the man, fuck the patriarchy. It's more about the fact that as I was describing, during this time there was a rise of seances and mediums because the Civil War started. Lots of people were dying. Death rates were already high anyways, just because of the flu and the common cold and stuff, and also child death rates and infant death rates. So people would try to communicate with their loved ones. And like I said, electricity was just recently invented. The telegram was just invented. So all these new ways of communication that already seem like mind-blowing for the time, something like, maybe speaking to the dead, to the beyond, doesn't seem that unfathomable considering the context of the time period with like the telegram and electricity and all these new technologies. So, and then beyond that, the churches, many of these, mainstream religions and Christianity, women didn't have leadership roles in the church. Whereas when you go to these seances and these mediums, many of them were women. There was a group of Quakers, they grew out of the Quakers and they were called the Shakers. And a woman would give sermons. She was preaching sermons. And even though they were Christians, they were grouped in with the spiritualism movement. And it was, for the first time, we were seeing women in more leadership roles in religious settings and religious groups. So that's why women essentially had to go through the occult in order to gain any kind of like leadership or have a power within a religious setting. So, okay, Harry says, is your argument sort of correlation causation when basically the rise of modern occult happened to coincide with feminism as opposed to directly influencing it or creating it? I don't think it's a coincidence. I do think the occult definitely helped feminism, but as I'm saying, it's because it was the only religion where women could go and were able to be seen as in leadership roles and stuff. So as people started getting more used to seeing that, women having, because usually the godly people at churches were these men in robes, and they were always men who, you know, had these like powers at the churches and stuff. But now we're seeing women who could speak to the beyond, and they were in religious like higher religious positions, and women had these capabilities too. It wasn't just men. So as people were starting to get used to seeing this, because during this time, his name is Mitch Horowitz. He's written lots of books on this. He's great. He wrote a book actually called Occult America. Rachel's book is Occult Feminism. So it's almost about the same thing, but they're posed in very different lights. Rachel is posing it as kind of a negative, evil thing, and he's just saying that this is what happened. Yeah, no problem. But, sorry, my light went out. I'm going to fix that. But, so, yeah, that was where I was coming from. We'll continue, and I'll fix my light.
That I wrote, which I presented at a conference, about the ties between paganism and feminism and how we're seeing this big pagan revival since the 70s in the West. And it kind of comes along with the feminist stuff because Christianity is a patriarchal religion. It literally means ruled by the father. And in Christianity, we do not have goddesses. We do have one woman who is venerated. That would be the Virgin Mary, the Theotokos, but she does not have a divine nature. She is a human and only has a human nature. So we venerate her as the highest of women. She's the Ark of the New Covenant. She is the Queen of Heaven, but she is not divine. She is not worshipped. She is only venerated and put, in a high place in the religion. Almost every other religion, except for the other Abrahamic religions, have some goddess worship element. So I would broadly, classify those as pagan or occultic, or, you could label them what you'd like, but that's generally what we're referring to here. And she was correct to say that in the 19th century, a lot of women who even said that they were Christians, I argue in my book that they were not, because they were generally Universalists or Unitarians. They did not adhere to the Nicene Creed or the traditional, definitions of Christianity at all. They kind of co-opted Christianity because they were in a Christian nation and had to kind of, do that to get by. But they openly declared Lucifer as their liberator. They saw him more as like a Gnostic version of Lucifer that liberated mankind and especially women. So whether feminism is good or
I kind of wish I pushed her on this a little bit, because I did research for this and I have not found any actual evidence about these early feminists worshiping Lucifer or seeing Lucifer as their liberator. Maybe that existed. Maybe a couple of them did, but I just did not find that. I wish I pushed her on that. Again, it was my first one-on-one debate, and so that's kind of why I'm going over this too, just kind of like a learning experience, and just to explain myself.
or bad we could get into, but certainly the occult was and pagan religions were instrumental in this. And as far as like calling Christianity, a schizophrenic dude who was talking to a bush, Wicca, I mean, Wicca is probably the most ridiculous and silly of all the occult religions. It was created in the 60s by Gerald Gardner, who was just a nudist who wanted to be able to touch asses and kind of get away with it. So he created a phony baloney modern version of witchcraft. So I mean, we could trade insults about which religion is.
Yeah, see, so the reason why I put that in there didn't read correctly, which is why I re-explained it just now. But I wasn't saying, I'll just re-explain it. I wasn't saying that to, as an insult towards Christianity. I was doing that on purpose, which is why I said now this is probably coming off very condescending and ignorant, which I've done purposefully. And then I probably should have added why I did it purposefully more clearly immediately after saying that. But it was because the way that Rachel talks about, religions and beliefs more closely aligned with my own also comes off very condescending and ignorant. So I threw that in there because the way that she talks about beliefs like mine would be similar to me saying, like, oh, well, Christianity is like a schizophrenic man who was talking to a bush that he probably set on fire himself, and now he thinks he's talking to God. So I don't actually believe that, but it was a analogy to how she talks about other beliefs, spiritual beliefs.
Sillier, but at least Christianity established a working social order that stabilized society for thousands of years. So I would agree that the occult was instrumental in it, but I think that was a bad thing. And I don't think that paganism or equality or feminism are natural whatsoever. It's kind of like, doesn't really matter if it's natural or not. That's naturalist fallacy. But even if it's natural, I don't think it's good. I don't think it works, and I don't think it's sustainable, and I do think it will come to an end. Feminism can't sustain itself. If you look at the situation we're in right now with birth rates and the collapse of the West and people not even being able to figure out how to date each other or get married anymore, I think we can say it's a fail, at least on that front, and we can go into more detail on that. But yeah, I would just say, yes, the occult was an element and it was instrumental in bringing feminism in, but I think that's a bad thing, and I think patriarchy is inevitable, it's inescapable, and it's the divine order that was designed by our creator.
All right, thank you guys for the opening statements. I just want to let everybody in the chat know, if you want to bitch, this is the correct way to do it. So a $200 dono to kick off the stream. I'm pulling the 200 kick things off an hour 15 minutes, and then from there we'll also get into all of the super chats. Dono.
Okay. So I just don't see why. Like, I think a lot of these women during this time, from like reading their writings and stuff, they understand the natural order of men and women, like in a domestic sense. Like, men and women will fall into their places like domestically, but as far as like politically, I don't know why we need like a patriarchal society for that. And I don't think that these, like, a lot of these feminists at the time were painted as like childless women or divorced or unmarried women somewhere, but many of them, especially a lot of the leaders of them, like Alice Paul and her husband, started I can't think of the name of it right now, but one of the main like associations for women's rights and stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So why does the patriarchy have to be like a political structure? Like, because I'm pretty sure my belief is that, or from my understanding, your belief is that women don't have a place in politics and government and stuff.
Right. Well, if you think about it on a broad historical level, there's probably some sort of reason why we didn't have women asking to be in politics or demanding that they could vote until a little over 100 years ago, 150 years ago. One reason is you didn't have some idea of universal suffrage democracy. That's a very new idea. It's only a couple hundred years old. Prior to that, there was never this notion that every single person who lived in any given nation or kingdom deserved a say-so in how things were run. So to that end, men only got universal suffrage just shortly before women did. So nation states and democracies are new, male suffrage being universal is new, and female suffrage coming shortly after that is also new. So these are new ideas. You're kind of operating, it seems to me, off of an Americanist presupposition, kind of an Enlightenment presupposition that we are all equal and that everyone ought to have a say. So I would ask you, why is it that do you think everyone should have a say, and if so, why?
Yeah, I think everyone does deserve a say, especially if they're forcibly living under a society that dictates their world around them, the food they get, where they can work, how much they can pay for, social programs, stuff like that. As long as we're born into these societies and we don't have an option to, it's literally like illegal to live in the woods and make your own energy sources and your own water sources and stuff. So yeah, living off of your own energy is illegal, I'm pretty sure. There's like ways to get around it,
Yeah.
but it's very hard and expensive. You have to like do it all yourself. So as long as we're like forced to live in these societies, I think everybody who is born into them should have a say.
So you think
Also,
that simply existing is the criteria? You don't think there has to be any level of competency to understand even how things might be run or to be able to partake in those systems? It just
so I do think that the citizens, the people, should have better competency of how things are run. And how could we do that? The education system. I think our education system is one of the most important issues that we have today that is damaging Americans like severely. And I think how the government is run, how just even simple things like taxes and saving money, how the economy works. Like, yeah, we kind of learn about that in school, but I think those should be some of the main things that we should really be pushing students to fully grasp and comprehend before graduation. So, one way we could do a better job of making sure people are competent voters and participating citizens is through a better education system.
an opinion equal I have an opinion, therefore I should have a vote, basically?
Yeah, the competency, if the competency comes into the people who are like making the laws and working within the structure, but the people who are still being affected by everything, like levels of competence or IQ or abilities or not, you're still contributing and playing a part into the society. So I think
So my children help me with house chores and they bring the groceries in from the car and they do their own laundry now. They're old enough even to make a lot of their own food. Does that mean they should have a say in how the household is run
I mean they have rights.
though? Do they? Children have rights?
Yeah, children do have rights. Of course they
Okay,
do.
explain how that works. If my
Children.
12-year-old doesn't if
Oh no, I don't know if this is gonna make me look stupid, Jerry Johnson, but I don't know what Matthew's principle is. I'm assuming it's something biblical though. Because Matthew was somebody in the Bible, right? But but yeah, and then yeah, I kind of look stupid here. When I said they have rights, I was saying like, I was kind of ignoring her stupid comment, like, oh yeah, just because the kids live in the household, they get a say. But I was trying to just ignore that because obviously, yeah, parents have dictatorship over their children. But when you are born, immediately you have rights as a citizen. That was my point. I don't think I clarified that. Oh, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer is Matthew's principle. Yeah. Yeah, that's something I definitely had to learn myself. Funny story how I learned that. I kept I used to have, before Bluetooth headphones and stuff, we had wired headphones, and my wired headphones kept breaking. And I was so annoyed they kept breaking. I was spending so much money on them. I kept buying cheap ones because I was spending so much money. And then, like, eventually, like, little 13, 14-year-old me realized, like, maybe if I buy more expensive ones, they won't break. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. Yeah, so if you're poor, you don't have enough money to buy the expensive headphones that don't break. You only have enough money to buy the shitty headphones that are going to keep breaking once a month. And eventually, you're spending way more money than the person who had enough money to buy, the $100 headphones that don't break for 3 years versus the person who's paying $15 for headphones, but they break every single month. And that's how I learned about Matthew's principle, I guess. Has to do with investing in the future because the poor does not invest in the future. He'll become poor over time. Yeah, and that too.
my 12-year-old doesn't agree when she says, "Mommy, I would like to walk down the road to my friend's house and stay the night," and I say, "No, you can't do that." She can exercise her right and tells,
Well,
"No, mother, I have rights. I'm going to do what I want. I will see you tomorrow."
if you were to do something abusive to enforce those rules, then your child would have a right of protection from you.
Okay, well,
But also
that may be
minors are different. Minors are different. Like you're not a legal adult until you're 18 to
right,
make your own
exactly. So
decision.
we don't just say if you have an opinion, you can vote. We do right now at least have a couple restrictions. You have to be a citizen. You have to be 21 years old. Now, prior to universal suffrage, there were greater restrictions on that. Do you think it's actually a better idea to let people who have no stake in the game, no skin in the game at all, people who cannot be tasked with defense of persons or property, people who will not be building or maintaining infrastructure, defending the borders, a number of other things that only men do. Do you think that those people should have equal say in how everything is run if they're literally not capable of doing the things that the people who actually run things do?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer your question with a question pretty much, but like, are you saying that the only people who should have a say in society are the people who maintain and run infrastructure?
Well, if
That
it were up to
literally the
me,
infrastructure that maintains the society that everybody is contributing to.
but everybody doesn't contribute to it. And if it were up to me, I don't believe in universal suffrage democracy at all. I think democracy is one of the worst forms of government. I think it's one of the most tyrannical. I think that universal democracy is you get the mob together and they get to decide to rob people who have things that they don't have but they want, right? Basically. So no, I don't think democracy is fair. I don't think it's even-handed or egalitarianistic, but this idea that everyone is equal or should be equal, you got to justify that for me first, because I don't see that people are equal, nor
I just don't understand how democracy. I think she's referring to, robbing people she's referring to taxes as theft, basically. So she thinks she thinks taxes are theft. How is that more like totalitarianism or like dictatorship-y dictatorship-ish than just having a small group of elites literally be in charge of everyone just because they're elites? I don't think that's comparable. I got a jet, but going against Rachel will help you out in future debates. Love, hate them. They are good at arguing, have excellent debate skills. Well, thank you, Caldy. I appreciate for the comment and support. And have a good one. Thanks for being here, at least while you could. Yeah, it was my first one-on-one debate, so figured I'd start with maybe a heavy hitter, I guess. I did not do that on purpose. I realized after, but whatever. Thank you.
would be considered equal when they're clearly not. Do you think that, let's take two multi-billionaires, right? Really rich people. Let's think about maybe Kim Kardashian and Elon Musk. Do you think that those people contribute equally to the world?
While I don't hold Kim Kardashian's value of contribution as high as Elon Musk's, I do think she has enough influence to be contributing to the society. Yeah, I think what Elon Musk is doing is more important and valuable, but we can't deny that Kim Kardashian has a huge influence on society, on people in it.
She does have a huge influence, but I would argue it's not a very good influence. You could see that this huge rise in plastic surgery among young women is mostly due to the Kardashians. So we have girls who are 18, 19, 20 years old getting dangerous, risky plastic surgery so that they can look like these ultra famous bimbo billionaires. I think that's stupid. But to look at like female contributions to society and say that they're on par with the men who literally have created the modern world is laughable. And here's why. You and I wouldn't be here right now talking on this live stream if it weren't for men. Women did not design all the technology that allows this to happen. They weren't launching satellites and, developing telecommunications.
Frequency hopping was invented by a woman, which led to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. I don't know why she thinks that's not valid. It was invented by a woman. It was invented by a woman for guiding torpedoes in World War II. Also, we have Grace Hopper. We have, God, forgive me, I don't know their names, but there's a lot of women who worked on the technology that went into some of the first spaceships built by NASA. There's a lot of technology, and like this is kind of like a shitty argument, but when you look at the world's inventors, like 76% of them are white. So are we just gonna be like, oh, well, I guess only white men should be voters because they're the majority of inventors or something? Like, I just don't think that these arguments map onto reality.
The Hedy Lamarr thing.
Grace Hopper
Hedy Lamarr invented Wi-Fi. No, she didn't.
Grace Hopper
Even if she
also
had.
invented computer language, computer programming, all this stuff. The dishwasher was invented by a woman. Kevlar, like there's a bunch of female contributions.
Women are the dishwasher.
Also,
So you might be right there.
do you not think that being mothers and wives in society is an important role?
Of course it is. It's the most important role women can have, but it doesn't mean.
Right. So why wouldn't women who are raising children, who are going to a public school system, the children that they made and raised, why wouldn't they have a vote for the public school systems that their own children are going to be attending? I just think I don't know.
Mean that we are fit to
It's
rule.
gonna go on.
It doesn't mean that we are fit to govern. In fact, I think those things are quite a bit antagonistic toward each other because the requirements are so different, and men and women are ontologically different. So the qualities that make you a good mother would not be the same qualities that would make you a good ruler. And women tend to be overall very irrational and illogical. But let's go back to the women invented cool stuff thing. Even if some women invented some things, if you believe that like a handful of women of color did the math that put
sorry. That being said, it sounds as if Rachel doesn't prefer a representative republic either. Representative republic. Okay, she's not exactly wrong on majoritarianism, direct democracy, as it is premised on the idea that a majority voting for something makes it just or moral. That being said, it sounds as if Rachel doesn't prefer a representative republic either. I don't really know what that means. I'm sorry. I don't know, maybe if you want to further explain, but you don't have to if you don't want to. But maybe as we go along, it'll make more sense too. I think she talks more about like her actual political beliefs and alignments too. But I should learn more about the different types of political systems and things like that, especially as I'm going into this more.
Man on the moon by hand. First of all, you're ridiculous. But let's just say that that's true. Who built the damn rockets? Like, who lays the concrete? Who are the people who... Do you know what power linemen do? Do you know what they have to do when they climb power poles and, like, actually put up cables that cross huge canyons and rivers and mountains and dangerous areas? How dangerous those jobs are? There's a reason why, still to this day, the vast majority of infrastructure jobs are done by men. It's because women physically cannot do them to a huge degree, and even the ones who theoretically could don't want to because it's dangerous and it's dirty and it's really difficult. This is why we see women doing the same shit they did 100 years ago.
I also have an argument. I don't totally disagree with her. I don't disagree with her that, women are, obviously not as physically capable to do a lot of these intensive labor jobs that men do. I think there are tons of trade jobs that women can do, and I think we should be pushing women. Hi, Grillin. Good to see you. I think we should be pushing more women into trade jobs. That is something I highly encourage and promote for women to start to get into, things like, electricians, welders, even construction and masonry and woodworking, all these different things. Especially tech industry too. Women are like severely needed in tech industries. So a lot of these trade jobs I think would be really good to push towards women. It gives them other options besides, like a super high office career kind of CEO-esque job versus retail, waitressing, or sex work. Also, it gives women a choice of going to college without spending money on a 2 to 4 year degree at a state or private school. That's one benefit that I think the trade jobs have. They're usually always necessary. They're always going to be needed in society, and the education is fairly low. So I think it would be really great to put women in more of those jobs. Obviously, there's some of them that women just aren't physically capable of doing, and I agree with it, that's fine. But I will say I have one other argument that I do think another reason that women tend to not go towards these jobs, a mechanic is another one, is just because it's like, it's kind of, I don't know, I just don't know, and this is just my speculation, but I feel like lots of guys maybe don't want to date like a female construction worker, or like a girl who's like doing these kind of more traditionally masculine jobs. So that's kind of a theory I have too. It's just, it's not very attractive. And it's also just conditioning right now. So, but I think as we go on and we, start to drop more of these old traditional gender roles and gender tropes, hopefully we're going to have a lot more male teachers in the future. A lot more male psychiatrists in the future, because that's severely needed. And then we'll start to see more women in trade fields. Do you think it's because of sexism, or because women are just less interested in some of those fields? I think it's both. I think it goes both ways too. But I think it's mostly because of conditioning, yeah. Not even necessarily, well, yeah, I guess it is like sexist conditioning.
Going into STEM, no matter how much we push them into STEM, women don't want to do STEM. They like people.
Especially when we talk about fields like STEM and the tech fields and stuff.
They like to be creative.
Oh. Grillen said, I'm newly becoming an Orthodox Christian, and I was actually one of the people who called into this debate. Nice to see you trying to grow your channel. Oh, thank you. Congratulations on your newfound faith. Hope it goes well for you, and thanks for tuning in. Harry said, basically, I was just saying that we live in a republic with a democratic processes, as opposed to a direct democracy where every individual votes on all things directly at the national level. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I do like the whole state idea, versus like everything's like dictated by a federal law. I think that's what you mean, but big believer in the states. Yeah, I think that adds a great benefit to a country and adds a lot of diversity and allowance for different people to live together under one nation, but pick their own little areas that best suit them. And even goes all the way down to the counties. So
like, women have their things. Women can do cool things. I do cool things. You do cool things. We might be very talented at STEM. See, women, they like to be creative. Like, women have their things. Women can do cool things. I do cool things. You do cool things. We might be very talented people. That doesn't mean we're fit to rule. It doesn't mean we're fit to build. And it doesn't, if we...
Sorry, just real quick too. This is why I think it is just more conditioning, because when we think of back in the day, who were most of the artists and the poets and the kind of more creative thinkers? It was mostly men, right? So I do think that these types of fields and jobs or work or interest, I don't think it has as much to do with your actual gender than it does your conditioning and your individual personality. Your gender, based on how your brain chemistry works, might have slightly to do with it, but scientists have found that there is, there's less variability seen between a brain of opposite genders than maybe two brains of the same gender. Like, so two male brains might have more differences than a male and a female brain. So gender really doesn't make that much of a difference when we look at brain chemistry. It's more about how it operates. So women tend to be like better at certain things, men tend to be better at other certain things. Like the way women's brains function, they tend to be better at multitasking, and men tend to be better at focusing on a single task at a time. These are like certain small tropes, but that doesn't dictate what the task is. It's just how your brain functions when you're working on the task.
We don't build and maintain society. I don't see why we should have an equal say. Maybe we should have a say in as much as women did before suffrage. So before suffrage, there were women's groups that were influential. And actually, those women were anti-suffragists. They did not want to vote because they said, we will lose our moral neutrality that we have since we're not just another voting bloc. We're not just another lobbying group. We're not politicized. So if we go to lawmakers and we say, look, we need more clean, safe parks, or we need better school programs, whatever it is they're asking for, they were asking from a position of like moral high ground, right? So it's not that women can't maybe have influence. It's not that maybe men won't decide to listen to women when women are being wise or something. That's up to them and their judgment. Doesn't mean that they are automatically entitled to have authority over men when they cannot back that authority up with anything.
Well, okay. So first of all, very quickly too, I just think that's a stupid argument that the fact that women can't physically fight off men, that, you know, we aren't able to back up a say that we have into the society and government. That's why I said with my opening statement, like, Rachel would want to regress to a society where instead of using intellect and debate, you know, we use physical force and, you know, fighting and just brute instead of our brains. Brute instead of your brains. But also, a lot of the anti-suffragists, many of them, what was it called? Prohibition. Prohibition had a big part to do with it. Slavery and the black vote had a big part to do with it. And a lot of anti-suffragists ended up shifting to be suffragists because one of the other reasons for a lot of the anti-suffragist beliefs was because at this time, federal government was primarily dealing with international affairs and war and things like that. But as America was starting to, you know, it was in its early stages still, and we were starting to grow more and progress, the jobs of the federal government were expanding more to affecting the overall society and the nation as a whole, outside of just war and international affairs. So then women started to feel, some of the anti-suffragists started to change to being pro-suffrage, because they were realizing that the federal government is starting to have more of a say on our everyday lives, and not just, you know, the role of wars and stuff where women felt they didn't have a say and shouldn't have a say. In this patriarchal society, like the one that, I guess, I mean, we're still, I guess, in a patriarchy, you could say, but like pre-suffrage, the society, all these men that you're talking about that like work in the coal mines and stuff, they weren't the men that had much of a say anyways. It was always the wealthy men who weren't doing these jobs. So
there's a natural hierarchy among men, yeah.
So then why are you arguing? So are you saying that? So this is what confused me too. She just made this whole argument for why women shouldn't have a say is because they're not the ones maintaining the structures of society. And I should have pushed her on this. This is why I'm going over this, because I'm trying to learn. But I should have pushed her on this. She was just going on and on about how women shouldn't have a say because, or like any leadership type roles in government, politics, and society is because women can't physically do these intensive labor jobs and these infrastructure jobs that maintain the society. But back then, pro-suffrage, those weren't the people that had a say anyways. It was always the elites. And now she's arguing that, well, there's a hierarchy. So that argument kind of goes out the window. Basically, her argument then is that there's a hierarchy, and she believes men, because they're stronger, have hierarchy over women. That's basically her argument. So I should have tried to make that clear too. Weren't a lot of suffragists and women more broadly concerned about military conscription and fire brigade duty in exchange for the vote? Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure drafting was a part of it too. When I was doing my research into the anti-suffragists, that honestly didn't come up a lot. The drafting thing, I'm sure that was a part of it though. Like I'm sure it had to be, but yeah, that was definitely a part of it. A lot of it too was that this was happening at the same time that they were fighting for black people to vote, and the black people did get the right to vote before women did. So then when that happened, it was also like, oh, well, if we give women the right to vote, now black women are also going to have the right to vote, and that might throw things off. Or especially more in the richer families that worked, because a lot of, I guess, rich families back then were involved with like the train companies and stuff, and because of prohibition, and prohibition was largely pushed by women trying to legalize alcohol, they were worried that women getting the right to vote would further prohibit prohibition, and then it would affect the train companies and all of that. We should reverse it, and those are the guys who lift things.
No, I'm glad you.
They weren't the men that had much of a say anyways. It was always the wealthy men who weren't doing these jobs. So
there's a natural hierarchy among men, yeah.
So then why are you arguing? So are you saying that we should reverse it, and those are the guys who can like lift things?
No, I'm glad you asked. So I would say that the way things were for all of human history until 100 years ago was just fine. There's no system that's perfect because power can always be abused by anyone, regardless of if they're male or female. So that's going to be a thing no matter who's in power. We have that right now. My God, like the government we have right now is arguably the most corrupt that's probably ever existed, or it's at least way up there, right? So democracy doesn't ensure that you're not going to have tyranny or abuse of power. Neither does putting women in charge. Neither would putting coal miners in charge. There is a natural hierarchy that exists among males, and that's for men.
I don't know about that one.
Now, in a Christian patriarchal order, the church informs who is in charge. The church is part of influencing and lawmaking and things like that. So you at least had some sort of moral body informing who was in charge. In a secular society, you don't even have that, which is why we have, secular humanists arguing to abolish age of consent laws and lobbying for the trans LGBT stuff all the time. So what I would say is there's been a hierarchy that was in existence. We had a balance of power prior to feminism. Because of the Industrial Revolution, creating this industrial world you and I live in, that world gives women like you this illusion, this idea that I'm just like a man. I can do anything a man can do. I'm just as capable as he is. But as they always say, there's no such thing as a feminist in a house fire, right? When the shit hits the fan, when stuff gets serious and lives are on the line, we don't go, somebody call the feminists. There's a flood. We have to save the children from the burning.
Yes, men did vote for women to have the right to vote, thanks to, I believe his name was Harry, or was it Henry? It might have been Henry Burns, from the Tennessee House of Tennessee Senate. Yeah, he broke the tie, because of he was actually an anti-suffragist. He had the red rose he was wearing that day to work, and he ended up breaking the tie. In the pocket of his jacket was a letter that his mother wrote him saying, like, I hope you're a good boy and you do the right thing today, and vote for women to have the right to vote. And it came down to him, and he said, I, and everyone was shocked. They were like, what? He said it so quietly. He was also the youngest member of the Tennessee Senate at that time. Or was it the House of Representatives? I don't know. But I have it in my notes. I'll find it. But anyways, it doesn't get passed by the House first, and then it gets passed by the Senate second. So it was probably the Senate. I have it in my notes right here, though. But yeah, so thanks to Henry Burns. But yeah, also when I was looking, like, I always hear this, that the majority of women didn't want the vote, but I haven't found any evidence or like, I haven't seen anything that actually says that, besides I just hear people on, like, in these red pill and manosphere spaces saying that over and over again. That's the only place I ever hear that, though. I haven't actually found evidence of it. I mean, maybe it's true. Maybe. Could be. I think over time, though, more and more women, it was such a radical idea. There's actually a lot of women who signed the first declaration of resolutions, of sentiments and resolutions, who actually ended up redacting or removing their name because they were so embarrassed when it hit the newspapers, and it was such a radical idea. They removed their name because they were too embarrassed to align with the feminist movement and the Seneca Falls, the first women's rights convention.
Building someone called a feminist. That's not what happens. So men are still the ones who make this world that allows you to think that you're equal with them.
I agree men and women are different. I don't think people are equal. I don't think anybody is equal. And I don't think gender is much more of a determining factor between differences than any other thing is. Like in brain research, the differences between a male and a female
Hang
brain.
on, stop. We need to tie this back to the topic at hand, which is...
All right, real quick. Harry asks, would you agree that there are certain infrastructure jobs that men may be better suited for on account of our biological differences? Are you working on oil rigs and construction work bricklaying? Yeah, I did say that earlier. I said obviously there's going to be a lot of trade jobs and infrastructure jobs that women just physically aren't suited for.
We just that one at level 7, and I win.
So yeah, there's obviously going to be more men in them. So yeah, I do believe that. Men are obviously a lot more stronger than women are. Garland, yeah, I like half agree with you. I don't vote for, actually haven't voted, but what I sound like a hypocrite now, but I really need to start voting in local elections. And I think that's something also the public education system and just all the advertising and stuff. Do you know how much money we spend on the presidential campaigns every 4 years? It's fucking crazy how much money we spend on that. And what really matters are our local elections, our local senators, mayors, all of these people. These are the elections that we need to be more focused on. And that's something I want to start to hold myself to, is voting in local elections and learning about the local policies that are trying to be passed and the people that are running and stuff. That's something that I need to start getting back into. I'm going to use this as an excuse, but I just got clean like a couple months ago. So I'm starting to come back into the world as a functioning person again. So that's something I really want to start paying attention to and being a part of, for sure. I've never voted and I'm 31. I have voted before. But yeah, local elections is something I strongly push. Absolutely. Get involved at the local level. Couldn't agree more. Exactly. Yep. I think public education system should really teach students more about that too. Less than presidential. I mean, like, teach about that too. It's important, but teach about how the local government structures work and the history of your local government and things like that. I think that's really important.
Occult feminism. If this topic relates to occult feminism, that's fine, as long as you can tie the needle back in. But right now, we're moving way off course. I need to tie it back to the topic, which is feminism and the occult.
Okay, so for many of the anti-suffragists were lobbyists. Wait, does this tie back to the occult?
Yeah, so since you were the challenger and you said I was kind of misrepresenting the occult, what do you think it is I got wrong? Or where am I misrepresenting? Where am I full of shit on this topic?
Okay, so like, it's just the light you're presenting it in. Like, you are presenting it as if it's some, like I said, this like astroturf movement that it sounds like you're kind of making it a very conspiratorial view, like it was like pushed in society purposefully by these evil entities that are trying to like bring Satan. I feel like you're like making it a war between like Satan and God and these Satanists are trying to push feminism to like push the church out of society. Am I right about that at all?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the reason I say that is because not only do I believe that, but a lot of the really influential feminists believe that. So, like Zuzana Budapest, who's a witch who came from Hungary in the 1950s.
I am 28.
And started one of the first legal female witch covens, the Susan B.
Thank
Anthony
you.
Coven number 1. She actually went to court in San Francisco and under the Religious Freedom Act, had them make Wicca an official protected religion under the Constitution, and she kind of bragged about being able to do that, pervert the laws of America in order to make witchcraft legal again, which it never had been here. And she said that feminism is simply the political arm of a greater spiritual war. She saw it as witchcraft is good, paganism is good, it's these evil Christians oppressing the women and they're bad. And this is where the idea comes from. This is why Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Matilda Joslyn Gage, and a couple dozen other women in 1895 rewrote the Bible from a feminist perspective. And some of these women identified as Christian. Now, again, I will say they weren't, because some of them were lesbian female pastors. Yes, they had those in 1895, believe it or not. They got kind of kicked out of everywhere and had to make their own church, but they were fine with that. And Protestantism allows such a thing. So they did that, and they rewrote the Bible from a feminist, vengeful goddess type of a perspective, where they took all the patriarchal stuff out that they didn't like. And Katie Stanton herself said in the preface, she does not believe any man ever talked to God. She doesn't believe the Bible is divinely inspired. And she basically thinks Christianity is bullshit, but it's too powerful. Too many people believe in it. So we'll just usurp it instead. We will just pervert Christianity and use it to argue for egalitarian principles. And that's exactly what they did.
Now, I will say, Graham, they were very, they were actually pretty polite. It was a pleasant debate I had with Rachel. I was a little weary, not gonna lie, going into it. Especially the thumbnail they used of me. Picked a hideous thumbnail of me. So I was kind of expecting maybe a bad faith debate. I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. But no, I have a lot of respect for how they handled it. I thought it was very good. And I'm actually Jerry Johnson said, I'm actually for rearranging the vote system, the vote based on nature, masculine and feminine dialects, foreign affairs, and policing should strictly be for men, for these are power projectors by definition. Women could handle internal affairs. I think the name hints at the nature of the power being used. LOL. Okay, the last part was kind of funny, but I totally disagree. I don't think we should break it down by gender at all.
Who wants to play where?
Did very sneaky, very Luciferian to do, but yes, they believed it was a spiritual battle. They thought this was not merely political. They thought the political aspect was just how you get it in there, how you invert the societal order, and they were correct. So I think is the difference just that you think that's a good thing and I think it's a bad thing?
The difference is I think it's the complete opposite. I think the women were fighting a political battle, and the only way it actually ended up happening was because of the way that the religious, kind of societies were set up at the time. Like I said, women didn't have leadership roles or, much of any kind of, they weren't seen as people that were capable to have these godly powers and stuff until movements and belief systems related to the occult, where women were seen as mediums and giving sermons and had religious leadership roles. And I'll have to watch that. I'll say Andrew's pretty funny. I'll give him that. He's an entertaining dude.
Be careful, playback, dude. Don't let them get that.
I'm sorry. Could you ask that last question again?
So you said that you think that I'm incorrectly.
I think I got distracted there because that's when I realized my sound wasn't coming through on the stream. I noticed in the chat people were like, we can't hear you, and I was like, oh shit, and I got distracted, and I had to ask her to repeat the question.
Framing this as a spiritual.
Luckily, I got it though.
The reason I'm framing it that way is because the feminists themselves, in their own writing, framed it that way.
But it's not. I don't think it was a spiritual battle. I think it was a political battle that they could literally only use. The only path to the political battle was through spiritualism, because all other mainstream religions didn't give women a voice. So the only religions that were giving women a voice and were allowing women to play a part in the church and have like give sermons and stuff was through occult religions. And when people started seeing
Okay,
that and
but
spiritualism had an uptick,
here's
it
a
was just
Hang
distinction
natural.
we
on, let
need to
her
make.
let her
Here's,
finish her point. Let her finish her point, Rachel. Go ahead.
sure.
It was only like a natural way for women to start having a place. And these things, like during the spiritualism kind of yeah, when spiritualism happened, like in the mid 1800s, during the same time as the women's convention and stuff, there was like a bunch of mediums and seances going on. But this was at the same time that electricity was invented. The telegram was just invented. Like these things was not. It doesn't seem so unfathomable all of a sudden. And then people were losing people in the Civil War. There was such high like mortality rates for infants and deaths for children and stuff. So it wasn't like this evil. It wasn't viewed as this evil like satanic thing that was happening. But it did give women a voice, and through that pathway. Feminism and the occult kind of grew together, but it wasn't like this evil spiritual like political battle thing.
Okay, well, first of all, let's debunk this idea of women didn't have a voice. The only reason you're saying that is because it's propaganda that you've heard repeated over and over and over through your life. Women didn't have a voice. Yes, they had a voice. They
In the
didn't have
Bible,
power.
women can't.
Wait. Now it's my turn. They didn't have power. They definitely had a voice. They always had a voice. Women were always important and influential and had all kinds of things. In fact, Susan B. Anthony herself in the history of women's suffrage, which was her.
I should have pushed her on this because I was talking about in the church. That's what I was talking about. That was the whole point of what I said. I said they had to go through the occult is because the churches weren't giving women a voice or leadership roles. So the only reason that women were starting to be seen in this way, that's why I brought up Mitch Horowitz earlier, and I didn't even continue on. He crunched the numbers, and he said about 1 in 10 people in the mid to late 1800s America were spiritualists, were some kind of like occult spiritualist people. That's a large amount of people. So for the first time, people in these movements were seeing women giving sermons again, and like women that have these capabilities to speak to the beyond. There were the Fox sisters, who literally, there was a trial, a judge and a cabinet, I think that's what it's called, a judge, basically a jury. They were set, I don't know if it was a jury or if it was a cabinet, I don't know, but the mayor and the judge literally came and ran an entire like trial and ruled that these sisters were indeed talking to the beyond. Now, were they not? I don't know. But my point is that for the first time, women were seen as capable of being, having these capabilities and these kind of like God touched, I guess, for a lack of a better word, and having leadership in religion. So that's why I was saying women didn't have a voice in churches, especially Christianity, or specifically Christianity in America.
Her work. She said, and so did Stanton in her own writing, they both said the reason they couldn't get.
When I say spiritualism, I'm talking about like the spiritualism movement, the spiritualist movement from in the like 1850s through the like late 1800s. Oh, shit. Which was related to the occult.
Women in on feminism, because I don't know if you're aware, but it was extremely unpopular at the turn of the century. Late 1800s, early 1900s, it wasn't even popular until the 60s. Women were very much against women's liberation. Only about 4% of women who were polled at the time prior to suffrage wanted anything to do with suffrage. And Stanton and Anthony said the reason we can't get women on board is because they have everything they want. They can go to school if they want to go to school. They're allowed to work outside the house, but who wants to do that when you can just have your husband go?
If you were to ever debate Pearl, though, how hard would it be for you to keep your composure? Debating Pearl would be a piece of pie, but yeah, keeping my composure, that would be the hardest part, is trying to maintain calm and cool and collected and not lose my shit, which I think I could do, though. I'm a pretty chill person. It takes a lot to really get me like revved up, but sometimes I do get pretty heated, I guess you could say, in these debates, which, by the way, is another part of, I think, like, as a woman, being in these kind of spaces is a part, like, is a way that modern sexism kind of affects you. When we see, like, men getting heated in debates and stuff, it's kind of like cool. It's like, oh yeah, he's roasting him, like, oh yeah, he's free. Like, it's like okay if guys like start raising their voice and yelling. Like, yeah, sometimes they get called emotional, like depending on the way they do it, but and most times, anytime like a woman starts to like get heated and raise her voice and stuff, it's immediately used against her. So that's a that's a modern social problem that I experience as a female in these spaces. But yes, Pearl, oh, that would be great if I could ever talk to her. I think it would be really easy to defeat her. The only thing is, this is one thing I have to try to get better as I continue to do this more too, is optics. I'm trying to learn how to make it like clear to the audience that what I'm saying is debunking or disproving or disqualifying what my opponent is saying, and making it clear to the audience, and really sticking on one point. I'm just like learning how to debate, I guess. But yeah, Pearl, and just because of her following and stuff, she might have better optics. But yeah, I don't know. That would be a fun one. Pearl even made Trent Horn get angry. No easy feat. Oh my god, that was so true. I loved watching Trent Horn get pissed at Pearl though. That, oh my god, that made my day, watching him he gave like a little insult like towards the end, and you could see he was starting to get like a little sweaty and like, oh god, this is bad. I was like, you go, Trent, tell her. That was amazing. I love that.
Work and you get to stay home and be a homemaker. You get to
That was a
partake in your
great
church life,
debate.
your community life, raise your children together with your sisters and cousins. They have a lot of privileges and protections that they don't want to lose. And Stanton and Anthony basically thought, too bad. You're gonna have to suck it up because we want power. So this was not about women didn't have a voice and they just wanted us, and we just want to contribute. We're not allowed to contribute. That's not what it was. They were always allowed to contribute. They always had a voice. This was about power. This was about women wanting to take more power from men. And the reason that's wrong and the reason that's bad is because there was a natural balance of power built in prior to women's lib. So if you look at genetic studies historically, all of us sitting here have twice as many female ancestors as we have male ancestors. This means that historically, only about 40% of men have ever gotten the chance to reproduce, and about 80% of women who've ever existed have gotten a chance to reproduce. The reason is, as a woman, the only thing you need to do to be able to pass on your genetic material is be fertile. That's it. If you're a fertile woman and you're capable of having babies, some man somewhere is.
I feel like that's probably more due to what are they called? I want to say like concubines. Wait, I feel like that's so wrong. Like, no, not brothels. Oh my god, like harems. There's like rich kings and stuff who had just like groups of women, all to them. And also, oh, I need to look this up, but I am like 95%. Okay, well, hold on, it's about to come up, so I'll bring it up then. But yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily like women's, like, I mean, I guess it's just by nature it's a part of our power. I don't know. Maybe that's what she's saying.
Gonna come along and fertilize you. You don't have to be hot, you don't have to be talented, you don't have to provide value, you don't have to be special in any way. You just got to drop eggs, okay? Not the same for men historically. Most men died in dangerous jobs, were put on the front lines of battle and ended up cannon fodder, or just were rejected by women wholesale because maybe they didn't make enough money to support a family, maybe they didn't have enough social standing. It's even more brutal now that women have all the power. So what happened when we had women's liberation is that this natural balance of power where women have this tremendous power in their sexuality, their fertility, and their influence on men because of those things, now they also have all the financial power, half the political power, all the marketing power. Like 80% of every consumer dollar is spent by a woman. Women have tremendous power, and what has happened is it throws the balance off. So now we have women who have unearned power in huge amounts, and men are still tasked with.
I don't know why the fact that women are spending more money than men, why is that unearned power? I mean, I guess if it's like the majority of women who are spending the money are spending their husband's money, but I feel like if anything, that would be less true today because more women are working today than before. So, like, how can she say, okay, I'm sorry. So back then, men were responsible for women's debt. So, say, and if a woman worked outside of the home, so if she had a job like that wasn't, you know, on her own farm or whatever, she worked, her paychecks, and she was married, her paychecks went to her husband automatically, because when you got married, you're basically absolved into your husband. But at the same time, any money that a woman spent, a man, her husband, any wife, that when a woman who was married spent money, her husband was reliable for it, was responsible for it. So any debt a woman incurred who was married, a married woman incurred, her husband was responsible for it. So how could we say that now making women individually responsible for their own debt is taking power away from men? Can someone explain that to me? I should have brought that up.
Dying to protect the country, being the heroes who have to save everybody anytime there's a flood or a fire or a natural disaster. If there's a city burning down, male cops are the ones that have to go in there with batons and tasers, not the female cops. We've all seen the videos of female cops.
There was no Sugar Baby and OnlyFans websites, but there were certainly prostitutes and brothels, 100%. If not, probably more than today. There might be more sex workers today based on the fact that we have OnlyFans and stuff, but when we come down to actual in-person physical contact sex work, I would guarantee you there were more women, more female prostitutes, and I guess like they had like burlesque workers and their own kind of strippers, and eventually before there was the internet, there was still porn being made, once we had video and cameras and stuff. So some of the first pictures were of naked women and porn.
So this took a natural power balance and threw it out of whack. And it was done in a very sneaky, subversive sort of way. And they're very proud of that, and they tell you that in their own writings. And they did see it as a spiritual battle. So if it was just a natural thing that was running its course, you wouldn't have needed the CIA to push it through Gloria Steinem and Ms. Magazine. You wouldn't have needed the CIA to create the Congress for Cultural Freedom to push these kind of values into the culture. They wouldn't have sent Steinem to India, to Europe to try to push this on people, okay? If it was just naturally happening as a grassroots movement that everybody thought was great, that wouldn't have been necessary. You also wouldn't have had to have, suffragettes firebombing businesses, bombing postal buildings, smashing storefront windows.
That's just how progress and revolution happen.
And revolution is evil. Revolution is not inherently good. That's an Enlightenment idea that this perpetual revolution is a good thing.
Like
tell me why violent revolution is good for everyone. Tell me why.
I'll make a funny argument for this. I don't know if I even like take this literally serious, but if I wanted to make an argument for this, I could say that, and you know, anybody, are you Irish, Jane? Yes, I am partly Irish. I am a complete European mutt. I am Irish, German, English, and Italian. My mom is 100% Italian. Her husband is English. And then on my mom's side, her mother was Irish and her father was German. So I'm a complete European mutt. But, fuck, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, my argument. Why revolution and progress, and specifically violent revolution, is necessary. If we just think about nature, and again, this isn't going to be for you Christian folks, but through evolution, in order to get to where we are today, a lot of violent progress had to happen. There's been 5 mass extinctions to get to where we are today, but technically it was progress. Again, that's kind of just a like a spicy kind of argument, but I just thought of it. Oh my god, there's so much. Okay, I don't know why you keep downplaying women's roles in society. Just
I
overall,
don't.
just because we're not
I keep
strong.
saying that women had plenty of
Let her
power
make her
in
points,
society.
Rachel. Let her make her points.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Just because women are not strong does not mean we do not contribute to the society and have equal logistical thinking and creative thinking power and progress, like new think. And do most Christians believe in evolution? A genuine question. I'm just curious. Like new ideas that can progress the society. I think that's women's opinions and ideas are very valuable, along with everybody else, and that's why we have a democracy, so that there's no just like. Sorry, I'm gonna let it play a little bit more, but just Jerry Johnson's comment, unless they're a young Earth creationist. So one of my next videos I want to react to is the Bill Nye versus Ken Ham debate, who is a creationist. He debated Bill Nye, and it's one of the greatest and most frustrating things ever. So stay tuned for that debate coming up one day soon. I've been wanting to do that. Small group of people dictating all of these laws and rules for people. We can vote together. So if somebody has an idiotic idea, it's not going to make it very far, because by the masses, we're all going to be able to vote and debate and choose which ideas we think are going to be best for our own society. Whereas if we go back to this, like, where we just let the strongest men hash it out and fight to the death over it, like, we're not going to get very far. It's not going to be the best for the masses of people. And we also have here's a quote from Katie Stanton. Because man and women are the complement of one another, we need women's thought in national affairs to make a safe and stable government. I ended up reading the wrong quote there. I had another quote ready to go for this argument. I read the wrong one, but it kind of went along the same lines. But it's also in my notes somewhere. I have so many notes. That's another thing too. When I'm preparing for a debate, one thing I need to get better at is learning how to organize my notes and outline. That's something I need. I guess that's just something that's going to come along with practice. The whole point was that once a woman got married, once she was married, she was basically absolved into her husband. So yeah, she could work outside of the house, but her wages would go to her husband. She couldn't sign a contract. Jeez. She would be paying property taxes, and then none of those laws would be, she couldn't vote for those laws for the taxes that she's paying towards. So these are all there, and there's many other more. It's on the Declaration of Sentiments, resolutions. I think there was like 14 of them or 18 of them that they listed that these women were fighting for. That it's not like. Also, many of the anti-suffragists, a lot of them ended up changing to be suffragists over time, because they realized that the federal government wasn't just playing a role in international affairs and like war anymore. They had, because a lot of women, so a lot of the anti-suffragists, I believe they wanted to leave the vote, the women voting up to the states, and some of the states did allow women to vote. So that was a thing that was a point I should have made too. So maybe it's true that a majority of women were anti-suffragist, but many of when we talk about that, we're talking about the federal law. So maybe the majority of women were against women having a federal law to vote, but we're fine with leaving it up to the states. So maybe when people are saying the majority of women were anti-suffragist, maybe that's what they're referring to. Because from my understanding, some states gave women the right to vote for a pretty long time before it was a federal law. And one of the reasons it ended up becoming a federal law kind of not long after the states had it, or like, relatively not long after the states had it, is because they realized that adding women to the vote wasn't didn't end up being this crazy drastic change that threw off all of society and all of the way the voting system worked. And when they saw the first implementations of it and implications of it, when they first saw women getting the vote implemented by the states and local elections, and how it didn't cause this crazy chain reaction or downfall of the society, more and more people started to be okay with it. And it was just, slowly, it was a new idea. It was a very radical and new idea. So getting people on board took a little bit of time.
Nothing big.
Vote, and the big thing was to make it a federal law, though.
Wyoming women could vote in 1830. So yeah.
Just all run blank.
And then what? Probably like almost 100 years later, women got their right to vote. I did all this research a week ago, and I'm already like, I forget all the dates and everything already. I think it was, oh no. Which headphone died? We'll find out in a second. I think it was like around 1920.
God.
Oh, I have my timeline. Let me see. Oh, 1919. Congress passes the 19th Amendment. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 1920. Okay, cool. So I kind of remembered.
And time, like another.
I just charged these. What the hell? There we go. Okay.
Want black people to vote. If we gave women the vote, then we would give black people the vote and black women the vote too. So I don't know. I just feel like you're twisting all of these things to make them very evil when they're not.
Okay, well, let's talk first about me downplaying women's roles. I'm actually arguing the opposite. I'm saying women were already very important, and they had plenty of influence, and they were held in very high regard, and they were very well respected. They were important. They had plenty. They didn't feel like they didn't have a voice. There's an interview with my 98-year-old grandmother on my YouTube where I ask her, did you and your sisters and friends feel like inferior citizens growing up in the 20s and 30s? And she said, no, we didn't have like any such concept at all. But that aside, what happened is women had plenty. Women had privilege, they had protection, they had a voice, they had influence, they had their own spheres of society that they were very much in control of. But that wasn't enough, okay? That just wasn't enough. So the power hungry, antisocial types. So there's such a thing as witch physiognomy. Professor Edward Dutton's been on my channel to talk about this in his anthropological research, and they found that, when they do studies going back through the Middle Ages, that the women who tended to be witches and also the women who tended to be feminists and suffragists. This is why all the suffrage posters where they're making fun of the suffragettes, it's some old crony type of woman with a hideous face. Those were the women who tended to be witches and feminists. Why? Because the pretty girls obviously get picked first to be wives. It's natural. Women like tall, handsome men. Men like svelte,
I'm muted. By the way, just fun fact, my average view duration right now is 11:11.
Good.
curvy, young, fertile women, okay?
I just thought
so
that was
if you're
cool.
this hideous woman who doesn't get picked and you're now in your 50s or 60s and you feel like you aren't noticed by society, you feel like you're not prized by men, you become a man-hating feminist. And so you want power. You want to take some of that power that the men have, because the influence you could have as a woman to raise children, help run the community, run the hospitals, do the elder care, the child care, all these other sort of social functions that women were very instrumental in. Women could also own schools and orphanages and taverns.
I should have brought this up too, because that's the funny part. Most of the women that had the least amount of power were married women, and that was one of the main pushes. It was married women felt that once they got married, they were basically absolved into their husband. They literally weren't really like a citizen anymore. Like I said, their paychecks went to their husband. They could be taxed for property, but not have a say. I'll find the other things, but the majority of women that were fighting for women's rights were married women. Interesting, Grillin.
Most of the taverns back in the day and the pubs were owned by women, so women had plenty, but it was the malcontent, outcast, antisocial women who wanted more. So they were like, no, I want equal political power and I want equal legal power. So if women are so great and if women are just doing such amazing things, do you think then that the reason we had a patriarchy for so long is because maybe women can't rule kingdoms, women can't run nations, women can't build infrastructure? Or do you think, because you think I'm the conspiracy theorist, I think it's you. I think you think there was a conspiracy all throughout history where the men like get taken into a secret class and they're like, listen, boys, we got to keep these women down. Make sure that your boot is planted squarely on the throat of every woman around you and don't let her have a say-so in anything and don't let her get any power because then you can't use her for a sex puppet. Is that what happened? Like, how did we have patriarchy for so long?
No, it's because as society, like we progressed. We went from freaking cavemen where we were rolling and battling with, fists, and then we had swords and stuff, and then we could talk, and like we just progressed. So of course, like we're gonna start off as other animalistic societies where we use force and patriarchies to rule until we start getting more intellectual. According to me, swords came before talking. I'm just kidding. I didn't word it in the right order. It sounds stupid though. Consciousness, and then we start including everybody. Like this is literally just a way of progress, and because people have only been around like what 30,000-40,000 years or something like that, or 60,000 years, I don't know, but not a very long time. So yeah, that's why we're only getting here now. But it's just natural progression. Every society has led this way. The only country in the world where women can't vote is Vatican City. So like, why don't you just move there? Like instead of,
well,
dealing
I'm an
with
Orthodox Christian. I'm not going to live in the Vatican. But progress toward what?
Progress toward
what?
I could have said that better too. I just think it's funny, like, especially these people. I just don't know why, like, you're trying to change a country that's fundamentally, like, separation of church and state so hardcore. Like, you're trying to change everything, and it's beyond the church and state issue. I just feel like a lot of her beliefs don't align with American values, like true American fundamental values. So why are you trying to change the entire country that was like built on this? I don't know. I mean, I hate when people say like, why don't you just move? Why don't you just leave the country? If you don't like the president, just move, blah blah blah, like that kind of shit. I think that's so childish. So I'm a hypocrite, but I just throw it in there. Stupid thing to say. Better society for all beings, all people.
Better according to what standard?
To the majority, to the masses of people, not just the elite, not just the wealthy people.
How is it better now than it was, say, 500 years ago for the average person?
Okay, well, first of all, like you mentioned earlier, you were talking about men's rates and passing on their seed or whatever. More men today have been able to make children. Yes, nope. It's the highest numbers in history. More men today are having children than before.
It's still, well, not proportionally, like not.
So this is what I was talking about. I think she is totally wrong here. I'm gonna look it up right now, but I'm pretty sure she's right that historically only 40% of males were able to pass on their seed. Today, I think it's closer to 60 to maybe even, might be closer to 60, which sure, that's still not a lot. I think for women it's like 80 or 90%. So yeah, it's still not a lot, but you could consider it progress. And if we're talking about percentages, 40% of men versus 60% of men, I would assume that it is proportional. And I'm pretty sure that was what that was the reason that these studies were coming out, was to show that, yeah, proportionally today, more men than ever are procreating than ever before. So I'm just going to double check that really quick, because I'm pretty sure she is very wrong about this.
Per capita. So still, I think it's only about 40% of men actually get to have kids in like worldwide. It's still really low. It's still way less than women. And guess why? Women don't, you know, they only pick the top 10% of men. And if they can't get that, a lot of them just won't have.
This frustrates me so much. How does it even logically make sense that every woman with a child, every woman, or even the majority of them, are having kids with the top 10% of men? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't map out. It's not true. And the only reason they spew this data is, or this fact, this statistic, is because it comes from Tinder. It comes from dating app data. Women on dating apps typically swipe right only on the top 10% of men on the dating app. That doesn't map out to real life.
Have babies. And even if they do, a lot of them still won't have babies. The birth rates are terrible, but progress towards what? So when you say everything's getting better, how is it better? Because in 1960, only 5% of children were born out of wedlock.
I didn't say everything's getting better. I said the whole point is to get better, is to progress to get better for everybody. As a nation, as a whole nation, we're trying to always progress. It's not progress for the sake of progress, but there are always improvements. We can't deny that there are always improvements that can be made. And that's my point.
Wedlock, and now it's 41% of children that are born out of wedlock. It used to be almost everyone had their mom and their dad at home. Now that's like becoming pretty rare. Women, 26% of American women are on at least one prescription psychiatric drug. Alcoholism among women is the highest we've ever seen it. We keep hearing from the left about.
So I have an argument about this too, about why so many kids are being born out of wedlock. So back in the day, you know, people would get married just, in my opinion, it was pretty willy-nilly. A man could find a wife because he just had a good job, you know, and now women are being a bit more selective because we don't have to, you know, solely depend on a man, you know, to exist in this society comfortably, and also just be accepted in the society, right? We can't ignore these social pressures. They do exist. People try to pretend that they don't matter or they don't have an effect. Social pressures extremely affect people. So today, women are being more selective in mate choosing. I think everybody probably is. And I think that's a really good thing. And I think one of the reasons probably people are being born out of wedlock is because people probably grew up in families that had very dysfunctional marriages. And, you know, before no-fault divorce and stuff, just because people weren't divorcing doesn't mean they were having a healthy marriage or maintaining a healthy family life. And now all these children, from the baby boomers and onwards, are being raised in these households and, you know, don't have very good examples or role models, and it ended up becoming this big domino effect. So, and we're kind of like restructuring now, like kind of just settling in now with feminism being the norm, and we're just settling in. I think it's all gonna honestly level out, and I think people choosing partners based on deeper level things and less superficial, less materialistic things is very good. I think that's a very good thing, that people are choosing mates based on actual chemistry and connection and bonding, and not just superficial, materialistic lifestyle type of reasons.
How, you know, wealth inequality is getting worse, right? And when you said like, oh, well, it's not caveman days, we don't have to worry about force anymore. That's baloney. That only comes from a woman in a first world country who's lived a fairly pampered life, historically.
No, I
Because
know force exists.
If you go right now to Gaza or Ukraine, they will tell you that force is very much still on
I
the
know
table,
force
and women
exists,
thing.
but it's a better civilization to. Again, yeah, I didn't say that force doesn't exist.
Wow,
I'm
dude.
saying that society today, at least like where we live, like I don't know where you guys live, but in like a civilized modern society today, we aren't making rules and dictating with force and brute strength. We're making laws and rules and governing with intellect and debate and voting, democracy, things like that, rather than just brute strength and bombs and war. And I think that's a good thing. And that's what I'm talking about, progress.
Guy's still peeking if he-
Obviously, force and physical strength still exist. I've dealt with it personally. I totally understand it. Fight with intellect and not with bombs and swords and guns.
But we don't. That's what I'm saying. We do fight.
Well,
if you actually
progressive
look,
democracy.
there's been more war. There's been more war and more deaths from war in the past 100 years than like the rest of history. It's insane. There's this great video on YouTube that will show
where are
you
those wars
like,
happening? In
World War
patriarchal
II,
societies?
World War I. Yeah, but by the way, if you're suggesting that women are less warlike, you would be wrong, because they've done analyses of monarchs throughout history and they found that queens and female monarchs actually are more likely to go to war than men
I don't
are.
think women are more or less likely to wage war or more or less likely to be violent against each other. I think women are just as violent as men are, and if they had equal strength as men, I think they would be committing the same amount of violent crimes and doing the same amount of, evil, physical, violent acts. So I'm not arguing with you there. Let me see if I can like tie this back in. I don't
So
think.
how would we be better if we were in a pagan society then? If we were all, are you a Wiccan? I think you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like, I don't really have like an
How would that
exact
be
name,
better?
so that's what I most associate with, I guess, is like Wiccan. But well, that's the thing. I don't want a Wiccan society. I don't want a society that's ruled by any one thing. I just want people to be able to be free to believe what they want and not have to force other beliefs upon each other and be fine with that.
That's a very adorable story from a very naive young lady. But how are we going to actually run the world? Because you realize that power is a thing, right? So you can't just go, we should just all be nice and we should just all share and just everybody should get whatever they want. That is like kindergarten.
What do you think
nonsense.
the reason for these wars is because I don't think I said that. I don't think I said, oh, we should just all be nice and everyone should get along and everybody should get what they want. All I was just saying is that I don't think anyone's beliefs, specifically religious beliefs, that are based on completely unprovable, just like impossible to prove, like no evidence things. Like, we shouldn't be forcing people to live by something that we can't even prove and that so many people extremely disagree on. That's all I'm saying. Religion is trying to rule society. That's the reason for most of these wars. So if we just if we actually separated.
You think Vietnam was about that? Do you think World War II was about that? How about World War I? How about all of the atrocities of Soviet communism, where they abolished the church and had government-enforced atheism? What about Maoist China, where there was no religious war whatsoever and there was like 20 million people died?
There's still going. Okay, there can still be wars.
Not the religious wars that are killing everyone.
Many of the fundamental like causes of these wars and tensions between countries is because of religious beliefs and just countries trying to be like, hey, my way is the best and get out of here. It's just like all this like egotistical just nonsense to me. So in a world,
we all worship Mother Earth and we just like smoke some weed or whatever,
if we're all
like there won't be war.
And that's what I was talking about, like when in my opening statement, when I made that ignorant comment about Christianity. That's why I made that statement, because Rachel makes statements like that. Like, oh, we'll just worship Mother Earth and smoke some weed. It's very condescending, it's very ignorant, and that's why I made that condescending, ignorant statement about Christianity in the beginning of my opening statement, or in my opening statement, to compare, or just as an analogy to show that the way that she talks about other people's religions would sound something like this. Like, oh, Christianity is just made up of stories about like schizophrenic people talking to a bush that he thinks is God talking to him when he probably set the bush on fire himself. I don't actually believe that, but I was saying that because those are the types of ignorant comments that are equal to the types of ignorant comments that Rachel makes about other religions. There might be war. There's probably still going to be conflict. Yes, probably. But the ideal would for there to be not would to progress to a society where we can like be accepting and live along each other. And yeah, that's very like idealistic and very like fantastical, whatever. But like that is the goal. And working towards that, I don't think is a silly or stupid thing to work towards, even if it seems very out of reach right now.
So as a pagan, do you believe that there's good and evil in the world?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. What are you going to do about the problem of evil from a pagan worldview?
We try to get to the core of it, the core cause of it, and treat it.
And what is the core cause of evil?
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of different causes, but one cause is unacceptance and not understanding of neighbors and each other, and like egos, strong egos, believing that like I'm the best and I'm the only and right way, and I need to change everybody else, and I can't live with people who don't agree with me. I think that's one of the probably.
So if you and I don't agree on what's evil, so if you sound like very libertarian too, are you like, do you identify as like libertarian or do you identify as a progressive?
I don't really know. I feel like I'm like center left.
Okay. So you don't think that the progressive left believes in using force to enforce their version of morality?
So I don't think that violence is completely useless. I'm like typically against it, but I think there's still use for it when necessary, like when fighting evil per se. But that's the hard thing too, is like defining what's evil and what, because something that's evil to somebody, like for example, like 9/11 seems like a pretty evil thing, but they thought they were doing the right thing by trying to like get rid of Western society. So they thought that was like a positive.
Okay, we're not going to get into any of that. You can use any.
Yeah, obviously I don't think 9/11 was a good thing, but my point here is it's hard to say like this is evil and this isn't evil, because like they, I guess, like based on the way that I guess they proposes like, oh well, America and the Western world is ruining the world, so we're actually doing the world a favor by trying to get rid of them. So that would be like a reverse, like obviously what they did is evil though, because you can't do that by killing people. So, and that's why I say we shouldn't regress to these just physical force, brute strength types of society. If you really think Western civilization is killing the world and stuff, instead of killing people, how about you intellectually debate and argue and fight for what you believe in without just killing people? That would be my argument. But the reason I brought that up is because determining who's right and who's wrong is very nuanced and very hard. But I do think that evil exists because people are intentionally doing evil things for the sake of evilness. Okay, yeah. I figured that, or maybe one of them were affected by it. I didn't know what I was gonna say, but yeah, TOS probably that makes sense.
Analogy on planet Earth, but let's not get into that one, okay?
Okay, sorry. But like my point is like the perspective of what's evil and what's good, what's right and wrong is gonna be different for everybody. So my belief system would be like, my ideal world would be to do, I guess it's like a consequentialist or something. It's like to do what doesn't hurt other people. As long as you're not doing anything that harms or prevents other people from bettering themselves and living an okay life, then that's like the ideal.
Well, but anytime you have two consciousnesses coming into contact with each other, and anytime there's a
most wars throughout human history. Can you hear me? Okay. Most wars throughout human history, am I like, is my sound, tell me if my sound sounds weird. Maybe this wire is broken. But most wars throughout human history have been fought over resources, geopolitical hegemony. I can't fucking read, dude. Sorry. Okay. Geopolitical hegemony. and so on. About 300 of the 1,000 plus major conflicts have been explicitly religious. So yeah, I can believe that, but I would say, I mean, maybe you probably know better than me. Are the more recent wars, though? Okay. Is that better? Are the more... It's weird, it's like not going past a certain level. I don't know why. But, okay. Hegemony? Hegemony? Hegemony. Sorry. Okay, so is it true though? This is my guess, and maybe you can correct me, but I feel like probably the more recent wars are fought more over like it makes sense back in when we were still finding our places and fighting over land and stuff, but now that we're kind of a little bit more settled, there's still wars over geology and, you know, geopolitical things, of course. But also, I just feel like more recently, in more recent wars, I think religion probably has more to do with it. And even outside of war, just conflict in general, just people fighting, tensions, I just feel like I think it's fine for people to have different beliefs, because I don't think anybody knows the actual answer. And I think I am spiritual, so I do believe in a higher power, and I just think that however, you know, it comes to us or our experiences, that's our perception of it, and we're all experiencing the same thing, but it comes to us in different ways and perceptions and experiences. So somebody might call it Allah, someone might call it the Son of God or Jesus, or someone might just call it the universe or whatever. But I think I just wish we could, you know, and again, very wishful, I guess, naive thinking, but I don't think it's wrong to try to progress to a society that is accepting that we might have different beliefs, and we shouldn't try to force our own upon others.
Why was I alone?
I mean, I would argue that World War II could have to do with religion, and if not religion, at least like a belief that someone or certain people are trying to force onto others.
Agreement about what is evil. One's going to do something, the other one's going to do something. So this idea that you can like get rid of power struggles, that you can eliminate this sort of thing, is ridiculous. And I mean, I don't know if Andrew wants this to devolve into like a meta conversation about morality and how we determine good from evil, but I guess I would ask it this way. Do you think pagan societies were more peaceful and less violent? Do you think pagan societies were more moral than Christian societies?
Back in the day, probably not, because they came from like the like Nordics and the Vikings. There are problems that come with society's cultures not being unified by the same beliefs, like political beliefs or spiritual, like religious beliefs. Like, obviously political beliefs, yeah, you could have like a civil war. As for other beliefs, I think that's because of the way we handle it right now. I just don't think we're able to handle it. I don't know why, but I think we can hopefully get to a point of understanding that just because someone doesn't agree with you, it's okay. And then eventually these, you know, learning how to, I don't know if it's, I honestly think it has a lot to do with, I don't want to say like mental health, but mental, like, yeah, I guess it's like mental health, like learning how to cope with differences, cope with traumas, learning how to handle your emotions, experience negative emotions in a healthy way, and go forward with them. I think the more we pay attention to these kind of things in society, the better we're all going to be able to get along and coexist even in a diverse society. I think it all has to do with, yeah, you know, kind of just like maturing as a society and as a people.
Romans
Super.
even, right?
Yeah, the Vikings were very like violent and like did some terrible shit. But I would say today pagans like overall like are very, very peaceful people.
To be honest with you, I would be fine with like a global language. Like, I think it's cool to keep traditional language for the sake of culture, because I do think culture has a importance. I think culture is important. I personally don't really care for it, but that's, like I said, from America. I mean, I guess like American culture. I don't know. Yeah, culture is cool. It's like a part of who you are, how you grow up, you know, your roots and everything. That's cool. But I'd be fine with like if there was some kind of global language. Maybe it'd be English, because I feel like most schools, like most places, like to try to teach English anyways. But something, I think it would be nice for everyone to be able to communicate with each other at least. Like the bare minimum, be able to just communicate with each other.
Yeah, like most Christian people are too. But when we have people in power that are trying to dictate society with these religions and telling people to live
But that's like totally different from like your religious beliefs, right?
this way, it causes a lot of tension.
Well, let me
And
guess.
there's
I'm
more
just going to
beyond
take a
that.
wild stab. I'm going to take a wild stab here, because it seems to me that the main differences there would be is stuff like feminism and LGBTQ rights. Other than that, I can't think of what Christians are doing to non-Christians that you would object to, unless there's something I'm missing.
Christians are doing to non-Christians.
Yeah, like what
Abortions.
beliefs am I as a Christian pushing onto people that you think is harmful?
Well, as she just said, she doesn't think that women should have any type of political leadership or voting power. So that's, yeah, I'd say that's a pretty big deal.
Harmful.
Abortion rights, probably, yeah. Love, who can get married, yeah, and then women's roles in society. I'd say that's like a good amount of shit.
Well, the reason that you say that is because you're presupposing a whole bunch of bullshit that you can't back up. So, for instance, you're presupposing that there is a right to fetus deletus, or that isn't murder. Very new idea. Not a Christian idea. We could argue about that, but again, that turned into another debate. You're also presupposing that homosexuality is about.
I mean, do you know that she wasn't trying, or she just currently couldn't speak English? She might have been trying to learn. But yeah, I think if you're moving to a country, you should learn at least the fundamentals of their language. But I guess some circumstances, if she was a stripper, she's probably has some like dire circumstances. So, but yeah, obviously, like hopefully eventually she could learn that language. But sometimes like certain things come first, like maybe your safety or just well-being, and then you can learn the language.
Love. I don't think that it is at all. I think it's about sexual perversion. I don't think that just because you're fucking somebody has anything to do with you loving them, and I don't think it means you can make a family out of you know, a.
Okay, I guess she was homeschooled, because I'm pretty sure like you have to pass the curriculum as an American citizen, unless they were illegals. But you like, if even if you're homeschooled, you have to pass like the American school. There's like a curriculum that the kids still have to pass even if you're homeschooled. So
Same-sex sexual relationships.
yeah, I don't know. I'm from the East Coast too, so I don't have a lot of experience with that.
So you're just operating off of a bunch of propaganda that you've heard, like love is love and women need a voice and these like meaningless platitudes. And if I asked you to justify any of it, I highly doubt that you could. So like,
I wouldn't have to, though. I don't have to. You're the one trying to say that it shouldn't be legal, and it isn't this, it isn't that, and it shouldn't exist. So I don't have to justify it. I'm letting people do what they want because they're not hurting other people as long as they're two consenting adults, whereas you're trying to prevent people from doing something.
Well, Andrew, do you want us to get into that then, or do you want us to get into these topics?
It seems that
out?
it does seem like it's perhaps foundational to the argument. Okay. So what is asked is, what is it that Christians are doing wrong? Rachel's assertion is that you know, they're pushing against LGBTQ rights, things like this. This seems to be the crux of why Jane thinks that paganism is superior, at least in modernity. So I do
I'll be
think
right
that,
back, but
I
I'm
mean, I've been
listening.
allowing it because it does seem pertinent to the
Sure.
argument.
Okay, then I just wanted to ask before I went with a line of questioning that
It could
wasn't
even be
related.
occult pushed, perhaps.
Yeah,
you
I
could
suppose
say.
it is. So, yeah, so the idea that like I can do what I want as long as I don't hurt anybody else. Well, first of all, how do you know that those things aren't harming anybody else? So like gay pride parades all over the place, you think that's not harmful to Christians? Or is it just that it can be harmful to Christians but not everyone else? If you agree with it, it wouldn't be harmful. But like from my perspective, that stuff is harmful as shit. And killing children in the womb is extremely harmful to unborn children. So like which one do you want to go with first? Do you want to go with the abortion stuff? You want to go with the, since we're in Pride Month, maybe we should go with how homosexuality isn't hurting anyone?
Okay, I never said it's not hurting anybody, but just because some parts of something might hurt some people doesn't mean that we should just like make it completely illegal for everybody, right? Like
So
fast
where's
food.
the line then? How do you know when you should legislate morality? By the way, from my perspective, most laws, maybe not things, maybe not really minor things like a traffic law or something, but most laws are based on the Justinian Code, which is based on the Ten Commandments, and it's a moral imperative, right? Laws enforce morality. That's what they're there for. Like, for instance, from your worldview, is there a reason why, you know, two sisters can't have a lesbian relationship and get married? Why can't they do that?
Two biological sisters?
Yeah.
Because they're family, and typically family, like, yeah, I don't know. It's just morally wrong. That's why, like, I believe
But
morals are like
why?
pretty
No, you
innate.
can't just say it's just morally wrong. You have to tell me why it's morally wrong because love is love, right? Who are you to tell them they're not hurting you? They're not hurting anyone else. They're just in love.
I mean, to be honest, it's pretty weird, but they are lesbians and they can't have children and hurt anybody else. So I guess like you do you. But like if it were a brother and sister and they were to try to have children, then that would hurt the children because it's gonna mess up, the DNA.
Okay. But we're cool with the lesbian sisters getting married because they're not hurting anyone and they can't have, you know.
Okay, so I think in Rhode Island, like incest is legal to like certain extents, which is fucking crazy. But yeah, my whole point here was that like I do believe that morals are pretty innate. So most people don't want to just naturally like aren't attracted to romantically their siblings. So that's like a pretty innate moral that we all, that doesn't come from religion. That's just something innate within us. So yeah, but as I said, like I guess if it's not hurting anybody, like you do you. It's just weird. I just don't think. Yeah, in Rhode Island, apparently incest. I'm sure there's certain uh, like factors to it, stipulations to it, but apparently Rhode Island has legalized incest.
Messed up
Weird,
looking
but
kids.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of weird, isn't it? So it seems like with your worldview, we're gonna get a lot of weird stuff. What
How
about
often is that happening? That's not happening like all the
that
time.
doesn't matter. I'm testing your logic. You're
Okay.
saying we should run society based on these principles. So we have to test those principles and see what happens if we're about to implement them. So like there was just a viral video online last week of a man in a neighborhood who was on his own private property exposing himself to children that were walking by. And a dad called the police and the police came to the dad's door and said, "Hey, he's on his private property. He's not hurting anyone. Just tell your kids not to look." Is that cool too?
No, he is hurting those. He is hurting those kids. That's going to mess them up by seeing that. Well, it depends how he's showing himself, because I personally believe that we over sexualize human bodies. Like I'm for nudist beaches and stuff. If he is
Now we
showing
know
him,
why she's a Wiccan. She wants to grab butts with Gerald Gardner.
no, I'm not trying to grab people's butts, but I think it's harmful the way that we
Smacking
over
butt.
sexualize natural bodies. So if he was to show himself to these kids and he's getting off on it and his penis is clearly like get in there, like that's gonna.
Yeah, I think if I do think actually a very harmful part of our society is how we demonize and sexualize our natural bodies. I think we shame our bodies so much. And I obviously understand that we can't have women just like running around naked and stuff, right? That's inappropriate. We can't like just be naked all the time. But I do think we I just think we really overdo it. Like, I don't think anybody should have a problem with mothers breastfeeding in public. I don't think that's inappropriate. I don't think it's sexual, because it's not. It's a mother naturally feeding her child the healthy and natural biological way. I don't think that should be demonized or sexualized in any manner. If a woman has to slightly take her breast out to feed her infant child that she just gave birth to, there's no reason why that should be seen as disgusting or shameful or sexual at all. I don't think we should have a problem with that, and that's something that really pisses me off. So yeah, I don't think we should be as so like ashamed of our bodies and stuff. And again, I don't think we should just have people like running around naked, but just like seeing someone naked, maybe just by accident, I don't think that should be really like a big deal. But if somebody is intentionally showing themselves, like exposing themselves in a sexual manner, then yes, that should be completely illegal. That's completely harmful and immoral and wrong. Yeah.
Be bad, and we shouldn't allow that at all.
So as long as it's soft.
If he's
As
just
long as
naked
it's
on his
soft,
front
it's
lawn,
fine.
just sitting in a lawn chair with a beer, I don't think there's a problem with that personally.
Okay, cool. So sisters can get married, and the old guys can expose themselves to the neighborhood as long as they're chilling in a chair with a beer. And it's
You guys ever watch Ozark? Has anyone seen Ozark? The dude, oh my god, what's his fucking name? The old man that they move into the house in the Ozarks, and there's the old man who comes with the house, and he's always sitting outside on the front lawn naked. Like, yeah, I don't think that should be illegal. Like, he's not doing anybody harm. He always went skinny dipping, and he would just sit outside naked. Like, I don't know. No foul, no harm done.
Stay soft. Okay, we're making some progress.
No harm, no foul. Yeah, that's it.
And then, so if you think that democracy is like this highest value and that we should all have a say, what do you think about all the times that they put to a vote? Like in California, there was a big referendum on gay marriage, and it got voted down, and they just shoved it through anyway. They went to the Supreme Court, and the powerful elites,
I don't watch a lot of shows either. I used to not watch a lot of TV, and then I got Netflix, so I have watched a couple of Netflix shows. I typically end up just rewatching like I like recycle my same favorite few shows over and over again. Ozark is one of them. It's pretty good.
Shoved that through and made it a federal law. So why wasn't democracy good enough in that case? If the people didn't want it.
Which state was this?
California.
I don't know. I guess.
I think it was 2000. Wasn't that like 2010? I want to say somewhere. It was the Obama administration that they had a referendum in California. And
again, though, it is a law restricting somebody from doing something that isn't harming other people outside of a specific group of people whose personal ideologies are against it. But if we're gonna say that gay marriage shouldn't be legal because it's harmful to Christians, can we also say that, pork shouldn't be legal because Muslims, like, their ideology, it's not right and to their religion? No. Just because certain ideologies and certain religions are against one thing doesn't mean that the whole nation shouldn't have access to it.
They said no to gay marriage, and then the Obama administration just pushed it through the Supreme Court instead.
I guess the people didn't agree with it, and I don't know. Gay marriage is a federal law now, right? You can federally.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because they pushed it through the Supreme Court. They ignored the will of the people. They said, screw your democracy. We're going to shove this pride flag right down your throat.
because it doesn't
Huh?
hurt it doesn't hurt anybody else.
Oh,
So
so really it's not democracy. So really everyone doesn't get a say. It's just if the powerful elite want to give you gay marriage, which you like, that's fine in that case. It's only democracy when it's stuff that Jane likes.
well, no, it's democracy when it's like if they were to start. It's democracy when it's stuff that doesn't affect other people in a harmful way. Taking firearms away from people, if they were to start like federally banning that, each state has its own firearm rules and regulations and stuff, and we can move to the state that we agree with or whatever. But if they were to federally take that away, now that's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect everybody's potential to be able to protect themselves. Whereas like gay marriage doesn't really affect your daily life.
So are you
But gay marriage
then?
Gay marriage doesn't like cause people to like die or not be able to protect themselves or like essential parts of living.
Yeah, but that wasn't your original principle. You weren't saying as long as if it, but all that aside, so like, let me ask you another question. How did you feel about the lockdowns? Now we can't use the C word, but we can say lockdowns. Okay. How did you feel about lockdowns?
So I've never been jabbed. I was laid off twice because I decided not to do that. I was actually laid off. Well, I was laid off once just because of the straight up lockdown, the initial lockdown. And then I was laid off I was actually fired for having, but I was fired for not getting the shot. But I said laid off because I was able to go back onto my unemployment that I got for my initial layoff. Thank God. But yeah, I was fired because I refused to get it. I think the initial lockdowns were pretty appropriate, and the mask wearing and social distancing, I think that was like pretty fair for a pretty like unknown situation that was happening at the time. I do think many of the rules ended up being very stupid and just didn't make sense. So I had an issue with that. I would have had an issue with mandates for them.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough. What if we held a vote in what? You don't have to tell me what state you're in if you don't want to, but like,
that's fine. I'm in Philly, PA.
Okay, so what if Pennsylvania has a referendum on abortion rights and they say no abortion? What if the people decide they don't want abortion rights?
Well, I think that would be unjust.
Okay, so it's definitely not democracy. It's definitely not consensus. It's definitely not everyone gets a say. It's more a libertarian consequentialism where it's like if you can.
Again, though, abortions affect people. Abortions affect people's lives. Their full lives. And yeah, there's an opposite argument on that, against that. But I could argue that the majority of that comes from a religious argumentation.
Can't prove direct harm. I think this should be legal.
Pretty much. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay. So we'll just, I don't think we need to keep going down that road because we already established that in Jane's world, you're going to have old dudes chilling naked on the lawn in front of the kids. And as long as it stays soft, we don't have a problem. And the lesbian sisters can get married and all of that. So
without objective morality, how can one determine what is harmful, though? There are different types of degrees of harm from an objective standpoint. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we can, like, tell, though, like, lying, cheating, physically hurting people, forcing people to do something they don't want to do. I just don't think that we need religion to understand these things. And then the rest are values that we can work out within a societal structure that's governed, you know, by hopefully as fair as possible structure. And yeah, we don't have that now, but it doesn't mean we can't work towards it. And I would say it's better than it used to be. I just don't think we should shame our bodies. Yeah, I think that's another part of like the occult and stuff that is seen as like, oh, free love, and it's so evil, and it's just to like empower women through sex and stuff. Like, first of all, none of like, I don't know, none of that is seen. Like Wicca and paganism, they view the masculine and feminine as equal. They rule separate times of the 6 months of the year. They're equals. It's not like women like hating men. It's all toxic masculinity and stuff. I'm sure there's some radical feminists and radical witches and stuff who do that, but I would argue that they're not true. They don't follow the true like path, and they're not.
Okay, so Alexander Kollontai in Russia, and here in the United States we had Victoria Woodhull. both advocates of free love in the late 1800s. Both in their writings and their speeches said that one of the reasons they were such big supporters of free love is because they were also
No, I
marriage
don't think that's
abolitionists.
wrong.
And they did blatantly say we should get rid of the nuclear family because it's patriarchal and it opposes.
But again, a lot of context matters, and that's why we have the social or the justice system that we have, which includes things like a jury and a trial and evidence and lawyers and judges. And again, yeah, it's not perfect, but if we keep making and improving these systems, you know, hopefully we'll get to the point of, I don't think it will ever be perfect, but we just keep making improvements where we see failures. All we can do is try to do better.
Women's rights.
Regressing back to like using men's physical force and brute strength, just the strongest men or the most richest men choosing everything, I don't think that's more fair. I don't think that's a better society just because God in one religion might have said so.
Do you agree with them about that?
No, but probably at the time it probably fit the context at the time, because many of these women did believe that once you were married, you were basically dead. You were basically absolved into your husband, and you had no rights anymore if you were married. So that's why I think it's funny too. You were saying it was just like,
yeah, when I said dead, I meant like you're basically dead as a citizen. Like you had no rights, pretty much. You were absolved.
Like these lower class like women the lower class women were actually had more equal
no,
rights.
No, not lower class. It wasn't lower class. Kollontai was actually like upper class.
Yeah, it was the more privileged women
that had ugly women. It's a physiognomy thing for the most part. It's the ugly chicks that couldn't get a man tended to be witches. They tended to become.
Well, I never said there was an objective right or wrong. That's what I said in my opening statement. I said that there's a lot of nuance, and especially, and I don't think there is ever like an indicative right or wrong. Or wait, I forget how I worded it, but basically, yeah, I don't think that there is an objective right or wrong. Whereas I think Rachel believes there is an objective right or wrong based on religious text. That was my whole argument. But I do think the majority of morals are innate. I don't think we need religion to have morals, like fundamental morals. And this is what I end up arguing too. It's coming up. I'm pretty sure we're like almost at the end. Yeah, there's like 10 minutes left. I'm not gonna go into the super chats and callers. I might do that on a separate video, but this is long. So but I think that Rachel keeps conflating morals and values. So morals of like what's right or wrong to do to somebody, and there's going to be context, so you can't just say objectively it's right to do this, objectively it's wrong to do that. It might be right, it might be killing somebody might be the right thing to do if they're about to kill a bunch of children or something like that. You know what I mean? So there is no objective like right and wrong, but I do think that morals are innate, and we know that just killing random people for no reason is wrong. Just naturally, like we're gonna understand that. At least at this point in society, I hope we all do.
Antisocial because they felt like this societal order benefits most women but not me because I'm a 2, right? Even the 4s are getting husbands, but I'm a 2, so I'm screwed. So screw this whole system. And they become very antisocial, they become very anti-family, anti-marriage because it doesn't benefit them. They're the few that feel left out. Now there were things for them to do. They could be nuns, they could run orphanages, they could have a pub, they could become, authors. A lot of them were. They could do other things, but they felt like marriage and family was bullshit because generally they were left out of it. It's like a pretty real phenomenon. The witch
most of these women had husbands and children, though.
Well, some of the prominent suffrage writers did, but not all of them. A lot of them didn't. Matilda Joslyn Gage, not so much. And she was actually the mother-in-law of L. Frank Baum, who wrote The Wizard of Oz and gave us The Good Witch and the Bad Witch. That The Good Witch was inspired by her. She believed in, Native American style paganism and thought that Christianity was evil and wanted to destroy it and wanted to destroy the patriarchy. So she was like a very radical, like typical style witch, lived out in the woods, I think she was married for a time, but I don't remember for sure. All that aside, again, I don't see how this we're gonna
fair enough, but if morals are innate, doesn't this presuppose a moral lawgiver? No, I don't think it does. I just think it's the human experience. I just think it comes naturally from the human experience of our, just the way our consciousness works, the way like we have empathy and the way we experience pain and suffering, and we understand we don't like that, so we probably don't want other people who we understand are essentially like core fundamentally the same as us wouldn't like that either.
All be pagans and let everybody do whatever they want, you know, be
I
naked.
don't want everyone to be pagan though. That's what I'm saying. I don't want
Well,
anybody.
you don't want them to be Christian. You don't want them to be in the traditional religions
I
because
don't.
those are oppressive.
No. I don't think. I don't think that. I'm fine with practicing your religion and having your beliefs as long as they are not affecting other people in a negative way and ruling people in politics and government. I don't think personal beliefs that literally nobody can prove should be dictating the laws of the land for the masses of people when nobody can
Okay, but
agree on them.
what you and I are doing right now, we're having a debate, and the purpose of debate is we're trying to logically suss out a moral question, right? What we're discussing here boils down to a moral question. Do you believe there's an objective right and wrong, or do you think morality is subjective?
I don't think there's necessarily an objective right and wrong, but I do believe there are a fundamental objective set of morals.
Okay,
So
where do those come from? Where do you get them from?
I think they're innate within humans and they come from just a conscious experience that we have, that we grow, that comes from things like empathy, fear, love, anger. It's just things that are innate within us, in our conscious beings, that I don't think we need religion to have
Well, clearly it's
moral
not.
control.
Clearly it's not innate, because if morality was innate, we wouldn't have so many disagreements on what's moral. We wouldn't have so many, like you said, oh, it's all war is just all these different people fighting over like what they think it should be and whose land it is and what religion they have. So clearly it can't be innate, because we would have a more universal morality. Now, the only religion that does have a universal morality is Christianity. Every other religion has more of either a relativism where everything's kind of meaningless, or they have one set of morals for themselves and another set of morals for like other people groups.
How?
Christianity was actually, what do you mean how?
Can you explain
So
how?
like,
I mean, I don't know why we know that, but I'm sure if I studied some kind of like more neuroscience or deeper philosophy or something, there's answers to it, but I don't personally know right now why people understand morals. But I mean, just look at like the all the different religions that sprouted up all over across the world, and most of them tend to have like a lot of the same tenets, and none of them had contact with each other, but they all came up with like just about the same moral tenets as one another, because I just think as a human like collective experience we understand these things innately, and I think that's evidence of that.
Judaism, for example, has one set of rules of how you interact morally with other Jews, and they have a separate set of morals for how you interact with non-Jews. Hindus have a similar thing. Muslims have a similar thing, right? There's rules for us that we're supposed to follow, and then there's rules for other people that, you know, we think they should follow and dictate how we deal with them. And in a lot of these like New Age and pagan and occult religions, it's very relativistic, where it's like, hey, like you said, you do you, bro. Like what's right for me is what's right for me, and what's right for her is what's right for her. So it's very relative. The only religion that has like a universal morality is Christianity, and that's why the Christian empires were so stable, lasted so long, why the entire Western world bases its laws off of Christian ethics.
I think you're
It's the
conflating
most stable thing.
I think you're conflating morals with values. Like morals with values. So I believe that we have innate morals within people. Like we don't need religion to realize that killing somebody is wrong. I don't think we need religion to tell us that killing
Really?
somebody is wrong.
Because your pagan ancestors did not agree with you. Your pagan ancestors thought human sacrifice was totally valid and, in fact, necessary
And
to pacify the gods.
that was a very
So
primal
you are
civilization that we've
pulling from
grown out
Christian
of.
ethics. You are borrowing Christian ethics. The idea that murder is universally wrong came from
I'm
Christianity.
pretty
So
sure
you're welcome.
Christianity borrows a lot of pagan. Okay, everyone fucking focus on this part so much just because I said that a lot of Christian holidays were based off of paganism. It was more than that too. That was just one small example I gave, but there's also a lot of evidence that Christian text comes from a lot of Egyptian religions and writings, ancient Egyptian texts. They're literally word for word. Pieces of the Bible have come from texts written in Egypt, and whatever religion they were. I don't know. I can look deeper into it, but I've seen this many times. I read about it a couple years ago, but there was more too. And Christianity, I think I end up saying this, but they did try to twist a lot of the pagan. So because so many people were pagan at the time, they tried to take parts of like the pagan religion and then twist it into parts of Christianity. So Christianity did essentially borrow from paganism.
Really? Explain. You better back that up. You can't just say I kind of think it does. You gotta.
No, you don't have to back off. You just made the argument for God and objective morality. Jane Ella C.S. Lewis in the Abolition of Man. I'll back off a bit, but I would definitely recommend a deep dive into relativism versus absolutism. Yeah, I want to start like learning about all these different types of philosophies and stuff. I've always like been into philosophy, but I've always kind of just done it like by being a thinker, and really deeply thinking about these kinds of things, but not actually reading other people's philosophies as much. So I don't know all the different types and things. I don't know exactly what I fit into. But this is something I've just been interested in since I was like a very young person. So yeah, it's definitely something I'm going to learn about and start looking into. But no, I appreciate the pushback and kind of the back and forth. It only helps like further my thinking and my understanding of my own positions. So I appreciate it.
Justify that with something.
Well, we have Ostera, Easter with the eggs. It comes from spring. All of a sudden,
No, that's
Christmas
not
happens
true.
to be on December 25th. Yule.
Okay, I could debunk these if you want, but like no, in the first millennium of Christianity, I'm an Orthodox Christian. We're the OG Christians. We do not have Easter. We have Pascha. It's Passover. It's literally Passover. Okay. So the Easter Ishtar thing is a word concept fallacy that retards on the internet. Sorry, I didn't mean to say the R word. Ninnies on the internet came up with this idea, and it's these silly people who think that if two words from totally different languages sound similar, or they take place in a similar season, that they must be the same thing, or that there's this that everything is borrowed. That's been debunked like a million times. This idea that Christianity took all this stuff and borrowed everything. We could get into that, but it's been debunked like thoroughly.
They did twist things.
Huh?
They did twist things. They did twist pagan gods, the horned god, into Satan and the devil, just because paganism worshipped a horned god for the hunt, because animals
Well,
that they hunted had horns, and now that's the devil.
We do believe that the gods of the nations are demons. It says that in at least 2 places in the Bible that I'm aware of, and I personally do believe that. I think that all these pagan gods are real spirits. I think that they're demons. But like you said, I guess you can't prove to me that the pagan gods are real, and I can't prove to you that the Christian God is real. But I can tell you that Christian morality is more moral than pagan morality, which included human sacrifice, it included sex rituals, it included temple prostitution, and all sorts of other horrors. Do you know what pagan tribes did when they would invade, foreign lands? It wasn't nice. They weren't fair. They didn't just invade and like throw flowers everywhere. They didn't invade neighboring nations and give them like, humanitarian rights. That's not how that went. And I still don't think that's how it would go.
What was that? What was that called? Inquisition or whatever? Like
the Crusades. I meant to say the Crusades. I said the Inquisition. I meant to say the Crusades. I couldn't think of it. And I was thinking, I was like, it sounds like Crucible. What is the word I'm trying to think of? And it was the fucking Crusades. All I'm trying to say is when we look back in history, we can pinpoint violence onto any group of people. Christians don't have a perfect history, and it's not like Christians have no blood on their hands. So I just don't know why pointing out all these ancient things totally dismantles or just wipes away any possibility of, paganism today or Wiccan or any kind of spiritual occult-esque type belief just being completely evil. Because when we look at the Protestants versus the Catholics, there was a lot of blood loss. There was a lot of evil shit done. Or the fucking Christians
Catholic Church,
Spain and all these like we can say all of these ancient religions. That's why I'm saying progression is the way to move forward. We shouldn't be regressing. Like we can
Okay, but
insert
you
something.
just advocated for legal abortion, which is literal human sacrifice on a mass scale.
It's
There's
not
been
human
more.
sacrifice, and most
Are you saying unborn babies aren't humans?
they're not.
They're
really.
humans. They're humans.
Maybe
You're
even
gonna
if
probably say they
are,
don't have personhood. You're gonna go, but they
Sure.
don't have personhood. But
Okay,
it's
sure.
definitely
They're
alive.
humans.
Listen,
They're humans.
it's
They're
alive, or you wouldn't have to kill it, and it's human, or it wouldn't be in your
Yeah,
body. It wouldn't be a
and guess
human.
what?
So it's human life, and you want to kill it. So
No,
I want to hear
nobody
about the
wants to
moral
get an
high ground.
abortion. Nobody wants to get abortions. Literally,
That's
nobody
bullshit and
wants to
lies.
get an abortion.
That's a lie. That is
Just
a
because
lie.
it
There are
happened.
women at these protests screaming about how I have one on my TikTok. This girl screaming, "I love killing babies." You have Gloria Steinem going, "Shout your abortion," and giving everybody the T-shirt. Yes, they want to get abortions. They love getting abortions. In fact, I did a whole
love
show
it.
with my friend. Okay, you
We
gotta
do it
just
for
let me finish
fun.
this, and then I'll let you talk. I promise. I did a whole show with my friend David Patrick Harry from Church of the Eternal Logos, a 3-hour-long stream about modern pagans. Okay, modern pagan girls on TikTok, on websites, the native indigenous tribes here in the United States, pagan groups, Wiccan groups, Church of Satan groups, all these different occultic believers saying that abortion is a human sacrifice ritual to them on their own websites. Okay, and this is not like one weird girl on TikTok. There are activist groups who say you cannot take away this ritual. It's a religious ritual for us and should be protected under the Freedom of Religion Act.
Okay, if people, do you think the majority of women who get abortions are doing it for a ritual?
It doesn't matter if it's the majority.
It does matter, because there's also Christian people who fucking put black people and gay people like in nooses, or they attack them, or they want to like they shoot. Yeah, there was like that Christian man who went into a grocery store and killed a bunch of black people, and then there was some people gay people get attacked all the time by Christians.
There was
like
just a
in the
trans
right.
school.
I have a very extreme family member who is evangelical. I can never say that word. Evangelist Christian, basically. He's an evangelist Christian, and he's very violent against diversity groups and stuff. So, but this shit does exist, and I'm not using it as an argument though. I'm using this to say it's a stupid argument for Rachel to use, that just because there might be some women, some places that think abortions are fucking rituals, you can't use that as an argument, because that would be the same as me saying like, oh, that one Christian dude who shot a bunch of black people because he thinks black people are against Christianity for some reason or whatever. There's like whatever. I don't want to get into that, but we can't use these as arguments. They're invalid arguments. That was the point of me saying that.
School shooter.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
We gotta
don't have to. We
careful
shouldn't. What I'm saying is we can't argue with these exceptions to say that this is all bad. If people are using abortion to force sacrifice, then sure, like that's wrong. We shouldn't do that. Just that would be my belief. But the majority of women aren't using abortions as sacrifices.
But what I'm telling you
Yeah, I think I was laughing at his face. It was like,
is that it is a historical tradition. So in this whole big project this big project I did, it went through tribes in Australia and New Zealand, like primal tribes that are still there and still follow like the pagan religions they had, indigenous religions, all of the Mother Earth worshiper people. There are activist groups across the world who say, and this is something you can find in Aristotle writing about this in ancient Roman times, that it was used as a religious rite, that abortion historically throughout the pagan world is part of their like spiritual practice. And there are groups in the United States and in New Zealand right now lobbying their governments saying you cannot take this away because it should be covered under a religious spiritual practice. And they demonstrate the historicity of it in order to make their point. So you can say, well, but it's not everyone. But I'm telling you, the whole pagan ancient world pretty much thought that infant sacrifice and abortion was a religious ritual. And so I'm saying you don't have a morality that comes from paganism that you can say is better than Christian morality.
That's an ancient belief, though. That's what I'm saying.
It's a modern belief. The groups right now are saying this is part of our like rite of passage. This is one of our spiritual rites. It doesn't matter if it's normative across the world, because 70% of the United States is Christian and most of the rest of them are atheist or agnostic. If all of you were pagan, you'd all say that. All of the witches, all of the pagans think that this sort of thing is a spiritually protected practice. There are girls on TikTok who will show you how to make an abortion altar and how to ritualize your abortion. I covered bunches of them. So maybe you don't, but it definitely.
I could see if a woman who was a witch was going to get an abortion, she might make an abortion altar, not as if she's praising the abortion or it's some kind of ritual, more so that almost in like and again, this is just speculative, but lots of, you know, crafting and stuff like that is it's just like more of, honestly, it's like a mental state. So you're putting energy into something, and you're using these ancient, like, I believe medicine is witchcraft, right? Because we're using pieces, but plants and things that come from nature to heal us. So that to me is literally like the definition of witchcraft, using things from nature to manifest. So I could see if abortions are hard to go through. So maybe just to bring peace to yourself at that time, or even just like in a not like not remembrance, but like in like memory of this like potential baby, or just whatever it is, just kind of like a healing process. I can see a witch doing that for sure. And I'm sure there's some batshit crazy witches who do believe shit like that. But that, I would 100% argue, like how Rachel argues that the women pastors aren't actually Christians, I would argue that witches who think abortions are some kind of like part of Wicca or even paganism isn't actually following truly the religion and aren't real Wiccans or pagans. Oh yeah. I'm definitely gonna stop after the debate section, but yeah, I wanted to come back and cover the call-ins and the super chats in a separate live. I'll do that in a couple days for sure. Don't worry though, I got you, Harry. that was hilarious. I don't know what the fuck was wrong with that woman.
Definitely exists, and it's definitely prominent, and it's part of their historic belief system.
I'm sure it exists, and we can find lunatics across all different types of any type of person, any type of belief. There are fucking lunatics, and those are the people that, in my ideal world, the law would deter from allowing them to abuse and use. But women who just need an abortion, for the majority of women who get an abortion already have children, first of all. It's their first abortion. It's not 1 in 3 women that have abortions. That was a predicted estimate from like the 80s or the early 2000s or something like that. I don't know why Pearl keeps spewing that over and over again. That's not a true fact. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think arguing with these extremes is reasonable, and most people don't want abortions.
My whole point is that they're not extremes, and by the way, we still have like,
they're not extremes.
The whole point of birth control is supposed to be we're going to eliminate the need for it, and that's
using an abortion as a fucking human sacrifice ritual isn't an extreme. I should have pushed back on that more. I should have like made her say that out loud, like for sure. That's why I'm doing this. I'm practicing. I'm getting practice. I'm learning.
It's not what happens. So when you sit here and tell me most women don't want to, I don't believe you. And they're marching and screaming and screeching, saying they demand the right to do it. So I just don't believe you that they don't want to, because if just nobody wanted to, we went from safe, legal, and rare under the Clinton administration to shout your abortion, okay? So I don't.
But yeah, to Harry's point, it was kind of wholesome. That's what I mean. Like at the end of it, and I think Rachel said like kudos to me too for debating like very maturely, and me and her, we totally disagree. I think Andrew did a very good job moderating too. I was skeptical, but he did a great job. Yeah, no, I have a lot of respect for, you know, the Crucible for how they handled this debate for sure, 100%. I think they treated me very fairly, and very, you know, politely. I think it was just very well mannered overall. So respect to them.
I don't believe you that they don't want to. That's number one. But number two, you still haven't demonstrated how Christian morality is worse than pagan morality, or how pagans have any sort of, like, it seems to be that you can just choose your own morality, because you're like, well, I think it should be this, and maybe some pagans think that, and I don't really know what they thought before. And it's like, I'm still not understanding where you're coming from with this whole idea that like I'm misrepresenting the pagan world, when I've done like massive amounts of study on it and written articles on it and done live streams on it, and I've got a freaking book.
Hold on, first of all, hold on, that wasn't my argument. My argument was that she was representing the correlation and cohabitation of the occult and feminism movement growing together. That was my original argument. Not that she was misrepresenting ancient paganism or something like that.
Very well aware of what pagan beliefs were and the goddess worship aspect of it and why it pushes feminism, and that yes, it does push sexuality because that's the only innate power women have over men. Men have a monopoly on force. We have a monopoly on like sexual attraction. So of course that's why they had temple prostitution. That's why they had sex cults for their goddesses and things like this. So I'm still not understanding how I misrepresent the occult and its role in feminism, or how it's somehow like more moral to have pagan or occult feminism than it is to have a Christian patriarchy.
And like, I mean, I could read you like text. We have the Principles of Wiccan Belief from the Council of American Witches from April 1974. These are all completely peaceful. It's a list of 13 of like tenets, basically. There's nothing about hating men. In fact, one of them is the number 4th one. We conceive of the creative power in the universe as manifesting through polarity, as masculine and feminine, and that this same creative power lies in all people and functions through the interaction of the masculine and feminine. We neither value above the other, knowing each to be supportive to each other. We value sex as pleasure, as a symbol and embodiment of life, and as one of the sources of energies used in magical practice and religious worship. Is that evil?
So I was saying that because there's nothing about hating men, anti-man. It's, again, it's the polarity. So masculine and feminine are just as important as one another. They are in balance. And that's honestly if I were to like have to like give one word for like just my belief or spiritualism or just everything about the universe, it would be balance. I think everything is in a perfect balance between chaos and order. Just everything. I just think everything makes up a perfect balance, like an atom, negative, positive, boom, like man, woman, masculine, feminine. I just think that is the key to nature, to life, to everything.
Right.
And that's like what aligns with Wiccan principles.
Yeah, sex magic is evil. Magic is evil. It's
okay. Is that
it hijacks the will of other people.
Sure, that's your belief. Sure, that's your belief. That's fine. That's fine.
How is it not? Explain to me, how are you doing magic spells if you're not influencing the will of other people?
So, and then also, it is evil. It is wrong to use magic on other people that aren't consenting to it. That is something wrong. And we do have, it's not karma, but it's something that, it's something that will come back to you. So they have like the rule of threes. So for anything good you do, it's like equal. Like you do something good will come back onto you. Or like the good you put out there is the good you get back, basically. But if you do something bad, it comes back to you in threes. It might be true for, I don't think it's true for good. I think it's equal for good. But like Wiccans believe the rule of threes. So if you're intentionally doing something bad, you're gonna have that come back onto you in triple, basically.
Well, no. So most witches, like white magic, you don't put spells on other people that don't consent to it.
Okay, so
but there is sex magic. It's the same as like tantric. I don't know. There's some like Hindu stuff and whatever, like tantric sex. I don't even know if that's Hindu. Sorry if that was offensive, but
it is. I think so.
Okay, yeah, but
Buddhist.
But okay, so you think sex magic is evil? That's fine. Do you think this is like bad? That the masculine? Do you think this is like harmful to men? This is hurting men. This is like this is having men and women be equal. Is some kind of like forced, I don't evil society movement or whatever.
I don't think the idea of men and women being equal is.
I never saw The Craft. I know I have to see it. When I first came across all this stuff, and I started discovering like the pagan stuff and the Wicca stuff, I was looking into like witch movies and stuff, and The Craft kept coming up over and over again. I haven't seen it yet though. But I loved Hocus Pocus when I was a kid, but those were bad witches. But
like intentionally harmful, but I think it's not possible. I think it's delusional, and I think that forcing to implement it in society does cause real harm. In the same way that like socialism as a
okay, Grillin, how do you determine what is bad though? As a secularist or Wiccan or whatever, Christianity gives a fairly clear rule set for what is evil. You can say that, but as I said earlier, So it says like one of the 10 commandments is thou shalt not kill, right? And then one is like thou shalt not lie too, right? So but like Harry presented earlier, what if you lie to save somebody's life? Or what if you kill somebody to save other people? Like what if you're about to kill somebody who's about to kill like 10 children or 10 innocent people, and you save those people by killing that person? You broke the commandments, right? So it's literally, it's all the same. Oh yeah, no, I know it's not a jab. It's something I do want to see though.
Also no.
Yeah, there's context and nuance for all of this, but it's a basic set of rules. Like my rule is like do unto others what you would want done or wouldn't want done to you. Or don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to you, do to others what you would want done to you. So, and again, that's very contextual. So like, let's see, I might like blueberries, okay? And my best friend hates blueberries. So just because I like blueberries doesn't mean that, oh, I should believe that I should give her blueberries because I like them, and so that's a good thing to do. No, but it's like, well, I like blueberries, so I should, and I like blueberries, that's something I want to eat. So I should give my friend something they want to eat, even if it's not blueberries. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense.
Theory sounds really nice and the intentions might be really good, but every time you try to implement it, everybody dies and starves, okay? So it's the same thing with feminism. When you say men and women should be equal, it's like, they're not though, and men have, like, we had patriarchy until technology for a reason. The only thing that makes you think equality is possible is technology. That's why they didn't write their bullshit Wiccan nonsense until 1974, because you need air conditioning and electricity to have feminism, okay? That's why we didn't have it until it's a symptom of a luxurious society. Anytime a society becomes too prosperous, you do.
Then you will not feel as guilty for still doing something right, even though it was difficult and felt wrong. It's a new situation. On Christianity, the premise is you are judged by God. Yeah, okay, but if you're judged by God and God says thou shalt not kill, and now you killed somebody in order to save other people, are you just waiting to get to heaven to figure out like if you're getting in or not? Like, I just don't think I just personally don't believe that's like a necessary step. That's one problem I have with religion, is I think it takes a lot of personal power away from you. I think it leaves a lot of like, let Jesus take the wheel, or having faith in God. It's God's will, instead of like having faith in yourself, or
jump lower.
Realize that you can't just be like, oh well, God will take care of it. It's like, I don't know, I just think that we have a bit more power over our own lives than Christianity will tell you do.
Wait for your teammates, Chris.
And other religions. But again, that's just my personal belief.
You gotta go out.
See feminism rise. Now, it's never gotten to this point because technology has never gotten to this point before, but it's just an illusion. It's just an illusion that you think that men and women are equal or can be equal. If you have to appeal to men for your rights, if you have to go to the men and say, men, you need to enforce our rights, then you're not equal. That's not
All
equal.
men have to do that. Everybody has to do that. Nobody's equal.
Yes, exactly.
We work together. We work together. Just because nobody is equal doesn't mean that only the strongest people.
You're saying we should work together, but that doesn't mean women should do the same things men should.
She's literally just saying only the strongest people, though. Or only the strongest or richest people, by that standard. Which is very, like, primal and animalistic and uncivilized, in my opinion.
That's the second thing I wanted to
Should do. It doesn't mean women should be in positions of power. Those things don't follow. Like I said, women can and should contribute. Women can be and are important, but it doesn't mean that they deserve to be in positions of political power or religious power.
We're 1 hour, 30 minutes in. There's never a great time.
All right, so that was the end of the debate section. I'm hungry. It's been 3 hours. Actually, we're at the 3 hour, 3 minute mark, and it was like 6 seconds when I looked up. I literally might have stopped it at 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 3 seconds. I'm not even kidding. So that's pretty cool. But anyways, I'm going to stop it here, and I will be covering the second half with the call-ins and the super chats. Yeah. So thank you guys for being here and being active participants in the chat. I love that. I love talking with you guys, even if you disagree with me, having little mini debates and back and forth and challenging my opinions, your opinions. I think that's all very cool and welcome. Never feel like it's not. You should read Jason Breshear's book, Awaken the Immortal Within. I will screenshot it. And try to remember to do that. I do want to start reading more. So I'll add it to my list. I'll look into it and add it to my list. Good night, Harry. Good night, Grillin. Everybody else who has been here. I appreciate it very much. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a good night. Peace out. It's a short book, 70 pages. Okay. Yeah, in that case, I got a picture of it. I will add it to my list. Thank you for the recommendation. Good night.